Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Minnesota Rackstars podcast. And it has been a while since we've been on here, but we're back. And it's actually a pretty good podcast. We had a lot of fun putting this one together. There's four of us, actually five. Josh joins us later on in the podcast. But it's myself, it's Travis, it's Mike, and then this week we also have Andrew Ruckert for the first time on the podcast. It's a lot of good stuff. Basically, we're wrapping up 2023. And we're basically talking about what we anticipate coming into the season, what worked well for us, and probably more importantly, what didn't go so well for us. A lot of good stories, a lot of good lessons, some things that we hope to see maybe play out differently next year from not only a personal standpoint, but also maybe a statewide standpoint. Just a lot of good information here covered. I hope you guys stick around and listen to it. Yes, it is a little long, but it's pretty darn good. So with that, I'm going to let you guys go, and let's get this podcast rolling. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Minnesota Rackstars podcast. And today we are over at Travis's place. And I got three people here with me. I got Travis, Mike, and Andrew. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to recap things a little bit from this previous year. And it's been a while since we've done a podcast, and we got a lot to cover. And there's some stupid stories. There's some good stories. There are some deer that died. We were able to take some deer. But today is just going to be basically a recap of this previous year, kind of some stories, and then also maybe some strategies that we used, strategies that worked, strategies that didn't. And some hot topics that are basically going on right now in the state of Minnesota. And I don't know, Mike, what's a hot topic that's happening in Minnesota right now?
I'd have to say wolves, Joe. Think about it. That's been in the news pretty much for the last couple weeks, maybe month. Definitely something that has been an issue and a lot of people are concerned with. And I think rightfully so. There's a lot of them around.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go and listen to what's Hunters for Hunters, right? Yep. They're putting on these gatherings throughout the state of Minnesota, and I highly encourage people who are in the state of Minnesota to attend these meetings. Power comes in numbers, and I attended one of these meetings, and there's some good information there. But along with that, I think everyone, central Minnesota to northern Minnesota for sure, maybe even working its way to southern Minnesota, we understand that wolves are they're an issue. They're an issue that needs to be addressed, and I'm glad that somebody has stepped up and is doing something about it and is speaking out against it. And I think it's important for people to show up. If you're not satisfied with your deer herd right now, and you feel that wolves are part of that issue, then you need to speak up and do something about it. So it's kind of cool that they're doing this right now. And where I hunt, the area that I hunt, you can tell there's been a big impact with wolves. If you haven't already seen the Timberwolf video I released on YouTube, highly recommend going out and checking it out. I think there was a pack of 8 of them that were running around me basically. So it's pretty cool footage, and it's gotten a lot of views on YouTube already and pretty popular. But yeah, it's definitely a hot topic in the state of Minnesota, along with wolves. Something that I want to do here sooner than later is get out and do a little coyote hunting.
See, I'm different. Coyotes helped me kill a deer this year, so
find a deer. I'll say kill it.
I may be pro coyote now.
We'll get there. One thing I kind of like doing is going around the table and asking people what are some of their first memories of hunting. And I don't know. I just think it's interesting because everybody has that first memory, that's something that always sticks with them. That makes, I don't know, hunting that much better because of those fun memories. But Travis, why don't you start? Maybe I tell you what, Travis does, for as quiet as Travis is, he does one heck of a job with his hunts. If you haven't checked out any of his hunts on YouTube, he nails it. Last year he had a pretty sweet hunt. That was last year, right, when that buck come in chasing that doe.
Yeah.
Buck running, breathing heavy, right underneath his stand, and Travis basically hard shot or shoots him, and he goes, I don't know, 40 yards and tips over in a pile of brush. And Travis has been killing it. I would say if there's an MVP of the Rack Stars, Travis has been there, but
He's the guy.
Not
he's-
this year though.
he's losing it a little
It was
bit.
tough. It was a tough
He's
year.
losing it. Yep. But so let's hear one of your
All right.
first memories of hunting.
So I kind of was thinking about this for a while, but probably the first hunt I can remember. I wasn't hunting yet. I was probably 10 or so. I think I sat, it was opening morning rifle hunting. And like I said, opening morning with Dad. We maybe saw a deer or two, maybe. We didn't, no shots fired. That night I sat with Kenny Dorn, Dad's best friend, has hunted on our land forever. Pretty sure it was opening night. We're sitting there. This would be probably before cell phone time. I think we had the two-way radios yet. And heard a gunshot. And Kenny's like, I'm pretty sure that was your dad that shot. Actually, after somebody's, from where we sit, it's a quarter mile away where Dad sits. Right beyond Dad, there was a pig barn there. You could hear the pigs squealing and stuff all the time. And right after the shot, you heard a loud squeal almost. And Kenny's like, I'm pretty sure that was your dad that shot. And I don't know what the squeal was, but then they called Dad up and Dad said, yeah, I got one, little buck or doe or something, he said. And I remember Dad telling this story all the time. Like Kenny said, after he said that, Travis goes, Dad doesn't shoot little bucks. So then we ended up going over here, ended up being a 10-pointer, that one of the biggest bucks we've shot out there, basically. Or at that, up to that time, that was the biggest. And
I think it was a giant mainframe 10, just typical as all get out, and good mass to it. But that body on that thing was huge too.
that was one of the bigger deer I've seen, I
Well,
think.
it's still
was-
got to be his biggest deer, isn't it? Like a 140, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty good. We've shot some other ones off there. We've had some around that have been better than that.
They have been better, but at the time, yeah, that was the, we haven't seen big deer until then. That's right when we started doing actually having trail cameras. We got the printed off pictures. I just remember getting that buck on camera. That was a buck we actually knew about that we killed. It's probably the first deer that we knew about.
What
that
kind
we
of
killed.
cameras were you running back then?
The old,
Polaroid.
Were they Moultrie?
I think they were Moultrie. It came in a
Moultrie
big
Polaroid?
You couldn't. You ran over that box. You couldn't destroy that camera. Basically, we still have it. I think.
Did it have the old film in it? You had
The
to
old
take to
film, yep.
Walmart?
Yeah, we still have an album of all those pictures. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, obviously there's a lot of people out there that understand what we're talking about when we talk about the Polaroid pictures. It wasn't just, you pull out an SD card and look at the photos on your computer. You had to run the film into Walmart and get it developed, and all of a sudden there you get 30 pictures of nothing because there was
The best is we had 10 pictures. You're wondering if you should take it in or just leave it. Took it in every time.
no, those are good memories there. Let's go to Rucker here. Rucker, you haven't been on the podcast yet. Maybe give everyone a little intro who you are, and then maybe kind of go into your first memory of hunting or your fondest memory of hunting.
Fondest or first? I guess, I don't know. I'm just Andrew. Nothing special. Just a guy trying to kill animals. I'd say my first memory was, I remember Christmas morning opening up the Daisy camouflage BB gun I begged my dad for. It came with a DVD. I watched that DVD religiously. Over and over, shooting little dumb suckers. I took that out. I killed pockets full of chipmunks. I remember the next year, my dad let me sit in the old tractor loader with him, sitting on lawn chairs in a tractor loader with my BB gun. That's about it.
I remember being out at my grandpa's, and we would help with chores, milk cows, feed calves, you name it, and then we'd get an opportunity, and the only thing my brothers and I would want to do is take the old Daisy
Oh,
lever action and go out there and shoot birds and shoot squirrels and
the animals I have underneath my belt because of that BB gun.
right. We know Ruckert has a lot of memories in that memory bank of his, and some good and some not so good.
A lot of knots. Okay.
But that's for another podcast. But Mike has been on the podcast before. My brother-in-law Mike. I don't know if you had to answer this question before.
I don't think
you?
I did.
I don't think you
I
did.
don't know. I just previous podcast we were talking about some new property that we bought, and that's actually where my first memory of hunting comes from too. I just remember trying to follow my dad's footprints through the 3 feet of snow that we had back then, to get to our spot. And I would sit there. And I think that first year I ever went out with them, I think I sat on a log somewhere. We just sat down in the bottom of a ridge line. And, for me, I was just out there hanging out at that time. And I had, candy bar wrappers that I was just, and Dad's like, come on, keep it quiet. But, and now that I have daughters of my own that hunt with me, it's the same thing. They bring out the oatmeal cream pies and the loudest chips they can possibly eat. But no, I think just that memory of being out there with my dad and kind of like having him, as I sit there, just tell me all I needed to know about hunting, the patience, we're going to go out. We're not going to shoot something every time we go out. We're not going to get that kill every time. And so I think having that instilled early on was really, really important for hunting all these years now. Is like, I'm not going out every time I want to kill something every time, right? I want to get that target deer or that big turkey that I'm after. But I think just going out there and, I don't know, spending time with family too. So I think mine doesn't necessarily come with a kill that first time, but it definitely came with like a lifetime bond, I guess you could say, for hunting.
I remember one of my first memories, of hunting. Obviously it's being really, really young and mom and dad taking me out there. But the first time I actually started deer hunting, I remember the first stand that I sat in was over on my grandma and grandpa's. And
how was that stand built? Those are my favorite.
It was made of lumber.
In between a couple
trees? Yep, 100%. I'm sure it's still barely hanging up there, but it's hanging up there.
The stories.
Yeah, right. And so I'm up in this stand and it's dark out, and all of a sudden I hear crunch, 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 and I'm like, okay, it is on. My heart is just beating through my chest. I'm damn near pissing my pants, and I'm freaking out, and I'm looking around, and I was not in control of myself, put it that way. And all of a sudden, it finally got a little lighter out, and there it was right below me.
Nice porcupine.
A gray squirrel. It was a gray squirrel. And I think everyone can relate to that. Just hearing those leaves crunching, and then all of a sudden your heart gets going, and all of a sudden there it's a stupid squirrel. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. Those first memories. It helps keep you young. It helps fuel the fire for hunting. And for generations to come. This past year, every year I set aside at least one day to take my daughters out hunting. And this year it was a day I really wanted to go out hunting, just because I hadn't been hunting in a while. And my wife was gone. I called up 2 babysitters. Nobody was around. I said, all right, today's the day. And I loaded them both up, and we headed out to the stand. And I think we ended up seeing 2 deer, but my daughter has a toy bow that she brought with, and it was pretty fun. But those are the memories that I remember, and I hope that I'm creating those memories for them along the way as well. But let's move on from previous history way back to this year, and let's start on the topic of outstate hunts. We all went on out of state hunts this year, and let's start with Mike. We went on this trip kind of together. Mike got out there the day before myself, and there was a pretty good buck in the area that they were going to be going after. But I'll let you take over, Mike, and explain what went on there.
We were fortunate enough to go out to Massachusetts to brother-in-law John's place and do some hunting. And like Joe said, I got out there a day before him, so I got put in naturally the best spot, and I just kind of claimed it as my own. Joe probably's like, yeah, I wish I could have sat there, but no. And so I got out there that first night, and the funny thing is the video that my sister-in-law Jess sent, I did not see until after this buck came out.
Oh, that's right.
So I didn't even know that this buck was out there. And so as I'm sitting in the ground blind, time's going on, I'm like, if I don't see anything, it's pretty cool to be out of state hunting in Massachusetts. And so I'm sitting there, and there's, it's getting dark, and probably about 10 minutes left to hunt, maybe a little bit longer. And I can hear something down in the swamp slough in front of me. And it came up the top of the little hill to the pasture that I was sitting in. And I've seen some big bucks in my lifetime, but this one surpassed them all. It was a giant. Turns out a 7-pointer, which I think, oh, 7 points. Wow, that's real big. But no, this thing it's massive.
And that's the thing, people out here listening right now. Every time someone says, I saw a big buck, I'm skeptical immediately because I've talked to people before and they're talking about this giant buck, and then they show me a picture of it, and it's a 130 or whatever. I'm not kidding you when I say that this 7-point probably would have scored in close to 150. I mean, this thing was massive. He was wide. He was tall. He's a tank. He was a brute.
Yep. Yeah. No. And he came out, like I said, with like 10, 15 minutes left to hunt. There's a little patch of grass in front of me where he kind of stood behind for a little while, and I wasn't able to, get a shot at him. By the time he came around the corner, out to the left-hand side of me, I grabbed my phone quick, looked at the time, and it was after legal shooting time. And so I ranged him at 38 yards and watched him walk off into the woods. And, although I wasn't able to, get that shot, I just think that just the experience of getting to see something like that was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
Not knowing what I was going to see going out there. I know John's got some pictures and some videos of some pretty big bucks out there.
Yeah,
but,
he does.
So then spent the next couple days hunting and saw a couple more bucks, a lot of does. But yeah, no, definitely an experience that I want to do again. I want to relive and go back out there again sometime because it's, I don't know.
How far was he away from you? Did you say
38 yards?
About 38 yards.
Yep,
Jeepers. Yeah. This, I mean, for many people, this would have been a buck of a lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. And what's crazy about that spot is that this is out their back window where they can see all of this happening. So we're getting videos and pictures of these deer coming through their backyard.
Nothing more frustrating than sitting not seeing deer and him sending videos from his back window.
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting in the blind and you put up the binocs and I can see what they're cooking for breakfast in the morning, in the house because it's but it's a pretty cool property. I'm not gonna lie. It's surrounded by woods, but it's
essentially an urban hunt.
Yeah,
I mean, basically because on the backside of the property there's a development back there. So I mean, I was kidding them that I was up in the stand and we were all in a group text, his wife and whatnot, and I sent back that I can see her sister-in-law taking a shower in the stand that I was in.
Sounds like a good stand placement.
Joe, aren't you coming in? It's way past the hour. It's 2 hours past shooting. Like, you coming in? No, I don't want to get out of the stand.
A lot of deer around me. A lot of deer around me. A lot of racks around me.
Yeah.
The old tuck drill.
Being we're on the topic of that, I probably should elaborate on my Massachusetts out-of-state hunt. So like Mike said, he went out there a day before, and you guys drove.
Yeah, I did forget. Yeah, with a 7-year-old, 4-year-old, and 18-month-old, we decided to make a 22-hour trip.
So what I decided to do, being that they were driving, I elected to send my bow with Mike and Sarah. So that way I wouldn't have to check it in at the gate and have to go through all that stuff. But the story gets better here, trust me. So I send my bow with Mike and Sarah, and I knew I was going to be hunting, so I started packing my camouflage hunting bag, and I was just going to run my bag through Ozonics. When I got out there, but I packed all my clothes and all that stuff. And I went through my bag and cleaned all of it out. And I was kind of in one of our rooms. My wife doesn't really like bright white lights, and I like it nice and bright where I can see. So we have pretty dim lights. So I'm going through my bag and whatever. I'm pulling stuff out of there, and I even grabbed a handful of twigs out of this bag. I was out in the woods, so I grabbed a handful of twigs, throw them in the garbage, and it probably took me 10 minutes, like, neatly pack my bag, and then actually lay down on it to get the zipper to shut, right? So I put a lot of time into packing this bag. So anyways, our flight was at 5 a.m. So we drive down to the cities. We stay overnight at my wife's aunt's place. We get up at like 3. I got 2 kids, by the way. They're 6 and 3. So, we got like 3 hours sleep. We get up, we go to the airport. I mean, the security line isn't even open yet. We check our bags, whatever. And security line, we're sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting. And finally, we go through security, and I hand the security my license and my ticket, and the security person says, my wife and 2 kids are good. They can go on the plane or pass through. And she looks at me and she points and she goes, you stand over there. And I'm like,
That's a good feeling.
I'm like, what? And she goes, your driver's license has been expired for over a year. So I'm supposed to go to Massachusetts, and my driver's license is expired. You want to slide over? You want to hold my hand here? All right. So my driver's license is expired, right? And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, I wasn't even thinking that they weren't going to let me fly. So anyways, this guy comes over to me, this big security dude, and he's like, what's the issue? I said, well, supposedly my license has been expired for a year. He looks at my license, looks at me, looks at my license, looks at me. Yep. And he goes, you got any other form of identification on you? I'm like, I don't know. I'm in panic mode now, I'm like, oh, geez. How about that hunting license in your wallet? I'm like, yeah, there we go. So he confirmed that my driver's license address, home address, and my hunting license matched, basically saying who I was accurate. So he's like, all right, you come with me. So I start walking, and he starts yelling out to all the other security people, this is my guy. This is my guy right here. They're like, that's him. Yeah, this is my guy. And I'm like, oh, Lord, here we go. So anyways, I go through the whole, you walk in, put your hands up, his shoes are off, everything's off, walk through, and all of a sudden he says, come with me. And he throws my bag up on this table, and he starts opening my bag that I spent countless hours on trying to pack and fit everything in there. He starts opening it up, and as he's going through it, he pulls out my Leathermans. My Leathermans was in there.
Get yourself on a list here, please.
He throws my Leathermans out, and I remember vividly telling myself, need to make sure you take out your Leathermans before you go on this plane. And I was just kicking myself. I'm like, okay, first my driver's license and now my Leathermans. And I'm like, you are an idiot. So then he goes, do you have anything else in here that might cut me or poke me? I said, no, that's it. I said, I remember seeing that in there and I just never took it out. He goes, you got more in here. He goes, you got more. And I'm like, I don't think so. He goes, oh yeah, you got more. And I'm like, no, I do not. All of a sudden, as he's pulling all the clothes out, I see the handle of my handsaw sticking out. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Well, here, like I said, I was in a pretty dark room, and I reached into that pocket and grabbed a bunch of sticks out. But the handle, that handsaw was black, and I just did not see it in there, and I packed clothes right on top of it. So here we go. We have an expired license for over a year. We have a Leatherman's and a handsaw all in my bag. I felt about, an inch tall at the time, but they let me through, and I was more worried about coming back home because I'm like, okay, I'm going to get to Massachusetts, but are they going to let me fly back home? Well, kind of had to do the same thing, come with me, go through extra security, and I was able to get back home. However, when I got back home, I found out that I had to retake my permit test, the written portion of the driver's ed test.
I don't know if I could pass that.
Right.
I'll tell you what, I'll get there. If it would have been 2 years, so I was like a year and I don't know, 4 months or something.
Yep.
If it would have been 2 years, I would have had to take the written and the behind the wheel
My
test.
dad had to do that for the same thing.
Yeah, and so anyways, I teach, right, Phy Ed and health, and so I'm sitting there in school, and I know that I have to retake this test. So here I am calling these kids over to me, like, "Hey, come over here once." I said, what's on this test that you have to take to pass to get your driver's license? And this kid goes, "Well, I think there's a lot of signs on there that you got to know. I don't know. I don't really remember. I didn't pass the first time." And I said, "Okay, enough with you." I said, "You get over here." Right. So I'm asking these high school kids what they had to do to pass this test. But yeah, so whatever. It was a rough trip getting out there. I saw some does and fawns. I didn't see any bucks, but you actually saw another buck out there.
Yeah, I actually saw that there was a forkhorn out there that had one side snapped off and the other side had to be 11 and a half inches tall. Like, I mean, I probably would have shot it.
Good genetics there,
right? Out there, you get 2 licenses when you buy them, $2 tags, and so like I probably would have shot it just to say, hey, get a European mount of 11 and a half inch fork.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Hey, I just want to stop here real quick. Josh joined us here. Josh, can you hear everybody just fine over there?
Yeah, I hear you guys.
Perfect. So we'll get to you in a second here, Josh, but that kind of concludes our Massachusetts trip. I don't know who wants to go first with South Dakota, Travis or Ruckert.
Go ahead, Travis.
Me. I did so well when I first started talking.
I'll help you through this.
Yeah, it's kind of a tag team because we did go together. We've been to South Dakota, what, 3 years in a row now?
I think so, yeah.
2 years South Dakota. Then we were in North Dakota the year before that.
This year, I think, what time we left? I don't know, about 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning.
No, it was there.
Was it?
I think it was early. We wanted to be there around sunrise, but that didn't happen.
We just hit the border when sunrise came up. And we were about half hour into South Dakota, and we seen that just a pig of a day. We were driving through this town. I don't even know. It's a town of probably 300. But all of a sudden, we're getting up to the stop sign. I just look out the window. All of a sudden, I don't even know. This buck had to be 140 plus.
It was a nice buck.
Just sitting on top of a doe, 20 yards off the road.
We're in our jeans and everything else yet.
Straight panic mode came in after that.
But I go, is this? Well, what we were looking at is like, is this public? Because it's just kind of a swampish cottonwood shit, and there's nothing. It's like that's like a public looking ground. And you looked it up. This is walking.
Yep.
So then panic mode set in.
We got a canoe in the back over top of all of our camo. That canoe went flying out of the truck. We went from 50 to 0 real quick. It was intense.
We got out. We kind of went down the fence line, past the trees, got out. The buck, he was there. They were there within under 100 yards from
Caught
where we
me
were.
off guard where he was.
Like, we might actually have a chance here, but what the hell did happen? It was kind of half mowed or strips that were mowed. So we kind of snuck through the first one, got to some taller brush, and I think that doe was locked on us and she took off. That was a good start, though.
It was a great start.
Was that a rut hunt?
What's that?
Was it a rut hunt? Like, what time of year were you guys out there? I can't
Time of
remember.
year.
We went.
It's set 2 weeks after our rifle hunt here, so
It was. We left the Sunday rifle last
Yes,
weekend.
okay, so it was
rifle.
tail end of the
I think
whitetail.
10th or 12th, somewhere in there.
So, sorry, I really, honestly, haven't been listening. I've been trying to figure out Josh's audio. I can hear Josh on the computer, but I can't hear him through my headsets. So that was, you guys go out there together.
So typically we like going during the rifle here because Travis doesn't enjoy the rifle season around here. So I gotta make sure my trips work into Travis's aggression around here.
someone wanted to go to.
So I went to Kentucky first.
Yeah.
So I kind of screwed Travis over. I'd say we probably hit it. We were maybe a day or two late because they were pretty locked down.
It was actually a pretty good hunt, though.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is we compare it to our hunt out there 2 years ago.
Yeah, where it was
Insane.
a lot of bucks.
I got good cardio workout in that year, running uphill into the wind. I'm still recovering from it. What we were sitting, I think so we got out there. I think our first stop,
We went to our honey hole.
Yep.
That Samuel kind of showed us, and we go every year. And walked in there, and
Actually, Travis has got this new decoy too. That's helped out. I think it impressed me a lot more than I expected because I actually broke off and went uphill. You came in downhill, and then we both nosed the buck at the same time.
we saw it. We just saw the ass end of a deer go into the stick stuff, and it was we were walking straight north it was straight north of us. It went in, so we decided to split, go east and west of it, and both had the right wind for it and see what the heck happens. And see, I got that heads up decoy. It's called, where you mount it on your bow. You got kind of an oval shape where you can see your sight and you shoot your arrow through. I just got it the day before. I was really hoping it showed up, and it
You
did.
were all paranoid.
I
that
know.
week.
I thought that would be a game changer, and
It almost was.
I think it helps. I don't know. It's different. It's actually, I thought it'd be kind of a pain carrying, but it's super light. I'm impressed with it. I'm going to use it some
You
more.
were
yet.
within 20 yards of that buck, weren't you?
Well-
Staring right at you.
Yeah, because so we went down to that buck, or it was a deer. We didn't know what the heck it was. We went on the east side. I was the west side, and all of a sudden, we went to where I last saw the deer, right where I went. Then something blew and took off. I didn't really know. I couldn't see nothing. Started walking straight to the north. Didn't know where you were. I lost you because of those cedar trees. Walking through that grass. Also, I saw antlers in the grass. Still didn't know where you were, so I'm like, it looks like something decent. I don't know. It looked like it was looking away from me, so I kind of snuck through that tall grass stuff. Got to about 50, got better look at it. Like, that's a shooter, I think. It was kind of busted up 8-point, but
Good buck.
it was a good buck. So I guess started getting closer. I'm probably 30, 40. Look to my right, be my east. Also, I see Andrew there, hat backwards.
Just
Probably
snuck
40,
right in.
40 yards from the buck. I'm like, okay,
That's mine.
I know where he's at now, so I'm not getting the arrow shot. I mean, if whatever happens, so we sat there and watched him for 20 minutes, half
That
hour.
was-
Just no matter. I tried grunting once. I heard you rattle or
Yeah.
something. I tried grunting and he wasn't moving. I
We
didn't.
thought we had him set up because whether he stood up, you were shooting or I was shooting. And that just was not apparently the case.
No, I had a bunch of brush in front of me. I had no shot at all. Until if he went to left or right, I would have had a shot, but nothing. Then all of a sudden, pheasant got up.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden, he did get up, or the doe got up.
Yeah, because I didn't realize there was a doe with her. Because I was actually standing behind that pine tree watching him the whole time. And all of a sudden, I noticed that doe about 10 minutes into it. So then I crouched down. I figure if he stood up, he's going to be 30 yards broadside. And he was, but there's a lot. Turns out there was a stick there.
Yeah. That was a small stick, but you smoked it, though.
That stick was hammered.
See, I'm sitting there. I got my release on, just ready, because if he would stand up, I might have a shot. But if he stands up and moves, I'm going to get a shot, I thought. So I'm ready the whole time. All of a sudden, he does get up. As soon as he stands up, all of a sudden, I hear a whack. He hit it. Like, and it takes off running. I drew on it, but he never stopped
That's
again.
not true.
I thought you smoked that sucker.
This sounded good. I'll
It
give
did sound
that.
good. It sounded real good.
That was one of my 4 shots in South
Yeah.
Dakota this year.
So that's one. Let's keep going with this then.
Well, so next day, there's this one spot. It's God. I've always wanted to go there, and last year I half-heartedly went there. But that's what I learned this year. You got to just get in deep.
Yep.
You don't always have to get in deep, but we knew this spot you had to get in deep.
That's what. Anyways,
We try every night. I mean, not every year we try to
We-
get in deep, but
First off, you got to go down this road, and this road is washed out terribly. And you go down.
what?
It's getting better.
All right, continue.
Anyways, so years past, Travis has dropped me off.
My allergies are kicking in. My bad.
Travis has dropped me off at the top of this road, and I've had to walk in. I've made it a mile and a half in there before. This year, we just said, got to go deep. Well, I go deep first night. There's about a 120 on a doe. There's 2 mule deer that are about 140 plus staring at me. Couldn't make a play on them. I said, all right, there's one tree in this whole bottom. I said, you just got to get back to that tree. Get back to this tree, setting up my saddle. 10 minutes later, here comes about a 160. Right on a doe. I said, my God.
Sounds
where
like
is it?"
Minnesota. Sounds like Minnesota.
Didn't even see a wolf. This is legit. So I'm like, okay. So dark comes down. These bucks or whatever, they're hanging out. They're coming down from on top of this bottom. There's a big hayfield. They're coming down this little bay to drink water every night, probably every morning. So I got out of there at dark. I told Travis, I said, we are getting up early tomorrow. We're getting in there. I had my whole saddle set up. Decoy was set up. Next morning, get in there, set up, perfect. There's about 6 branches off this tree, though, hanging down low. I said, whatever, I can shoot in between them. Set the decoy up. Here comes just this hammer of a mule deer, about 160 plus. Comes down, and it's about their pre-rut. and he's checking out my whitetail decoy. He gets 30 yards and, of course, stops right where there's one branch and invites us. And this tree is leaning so far forward from my saddle. Typically, you can lean with the saddle. Here I am. I pull back, try leaning a little bit. No, start leaning, lose my balance, shot the arrow, God knows where. So there's shot number 2. So I said, okay, this ain't working. Well, before that, this morning, about 120 busted up, just bruiser buck. Came through about 100 yards, checked it out, but went over the hill. So after that, I shot this at this mule deer. I get down, I said, this ain't working. I get down the creek bottom, just get down to get to my bow untied. Here comes this same buck, the 120 whitetail, over the hill, staring down at me. I said, Jesus. Of course, why not? So I'm knocking my arrow. I said, well, I don't know what to do. I said, he's probably going to come check me out, so I should probably pull back. As soon as I said I should pull back, here he comes staring right at me. And, of course, natural fashion, he busts out of there. So I was frustrated. So I told Travis, come pick me up. On my walk out, every draw on the way back had a 120-plus buck bedded down with a doe. So I told Travis that we are getting in there tonight. There's no and ifs or buts about it. So we get in there. I set the decoy up again, sitting in a tree now. It's about 6 inches wide with my saddle. Got the decoy set up. Here comes a whole herd of doe, or a doe. I think there's 3 or 4 does. 4 bucks behind it. 2 satellite little bucks, and 2 of them pretty decent. Well, she actually does. She comes in perfect. She stops at 43 yards. It's okay. Well, this buck's going to do the same thing. He's about, I don't know, 100 yards behind her, making a scrape on. Okay, there's 2 trees in this bottom. Make a scrape on the only other tree there. They end up actually walking right by where I was sitting that morning. I said, classic. They're going to walk right there and not come in. But this doe comes in 43 yards. I says, buck's going to do the same thing. Here he comes. I pull back. He's at 43 yards, exactly where his doe was. And also he's staring at me, pull back. I said, well, this is game over. My heart's beating. I can hear my own heart. I said, there's no way he doesn't hear my heart beating. It was crazy. Well, he stops at 43 yards. Also, a mule deer comes over the hill, scares him, but he's still standing there, but he's watching him. I said, perfect. Well, I was in front of his shoulder. I was trying to move back, ended up releasing an arrow, hit him in the back hip. Terrible shot, but he started squirting blood. Must hit the main artery. He went up the creek bottom. He's standing on top of it. He's at 100 yards, can't cross the fence because his back hips are screwed up. I said, well, I might as well shoot him again. Why not? So here comes miss number 2. 100 yards, shoot, miss him. He falls down the hill, runs about 70, 80 yards, just piles up. Legs start shaking, tips over. It was crazy. We had a long night that night.
That was
I've never earned a beer so much in my life.
So from where we parked to there was what?
3.2 miles.
And it's
not flat.
not giving up, but it's a beach we walk. So
Yeah.
it's not solid ground. It's you
Sand.
step and you dig ground to walk. And
It was brutal. And luckily, Travis had a backpack to carry the back straps. And
I had the head. That was
You
a
had
heavy head.
was
He was thick.
I just took the other 4 quarters. We trucked right out of there. I don't even know how long it took us, but I've never tasted such a good beer in my life.
What'd that buck end up being?
Oh, it was probably about 120s.
Yeah, and I mean,
It was earned. That was a fun buck.
that's the thing. Like that 120 is a trophy for anyone who puts in the amount of time and has the amount of encounters that didn't go your way.
Oh, we've had plenty of those.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wounded it
Yeah.
a couple years before. There we go. We're going to get in deep now. Was it last day of season? We decided to come into our honey hole, we call it, on the backside, which we never come in. But
Where
the
we
wind,
saw that first
yeah.
buck this last year.
Yep.
Same spot.
the wind left us no choice but to come in from there. So we come in from this side, and we're just coming over this little hill that usually does not matter. There's never deer there. But all of a sudden, I'm walking in front. Travis, hey, $4. All of a sudden, I look, and there is 4 dandies.
Like, right?
Within 100 yards. So we get down, chase those ones around, they ended up getting out of there. Well, we're sitting in a creek bottom, and we got, what, hour and a half left to light? Well, of course, naturally, I got to poop at this point. I said, Travis, you just sit right here. I got to go in the pine trees. Come back out.
Well, I don't know. What did you use to wipe?
Oh,
This is a
freaking
key part of the story.
landscaping mesh that they planted underneath the pine trees.
The weed
Yeah.
preventer.
Oh
It
no!
was-
And what'd you cut it with? Your broadhead, right?
I cut it with my broad. Sharp broadheads if you want a broadhead point. But
I don't think that's as bad as what I heard. We were with another. I think you were with. We were on a bachelor party one time, and there was someone that had to go number 2 and used a leaf and end up being poison
Oh,
ivy.
jeez.
We're borderline there.
I'll take mesh.
Yeah, that would.
Still gonna have a rash.
So are you on the golf course or what? You got mesh underneath
No,
the pine
because
trees
it's
out
like
there?
a public ground where
Yeah.
they plant these
'Cause
cedars
believe it or
and
not,
stuff
South
for
Dakota, there's
cover.
only about 7 trees in the whole state.
Pipestone has
Yeah.
that too. Down
Yeah.
Pipestone, basically a lot of it is just like windbreaks. And,
That's
Yeah.
what it was. It's actually
Yeah.
huge. 'Cause that's where all the deer hang out. But then I come back to Travis and we sat there for 10 minutes. Also, we look up on our Honey Hole Hill. Just dandy, perfectly symmetrical. I don't know if it was 8 or 10, but it was about 160.
It was one of the bigger deer that I've ever seen.
And
out
it
there.
stood there, and I said, Travis, you got rattled. Mind you, okay, let's flashback. So it snowed that morning, and somebody thought it was a great idea to put this
We
whole
got
snow
a
camel suit on.
a dusting of
Yeah.
snow that morning. It was
And just so happened where we were, there was zero snow. So now I'm walking around with a guy dressed in full white with the biggest set of rattling antlers I've ever seen in my life. I'm like, dear God, we got zero chance of this, but give him a shot, Travis. So Travis rattles, and all of a sudden he's with the doe. He stares down at Travis, and I took the crick bomb, came all the way down. This is about a 20-minute stalk. I crawled through these pine trees that are about 6 inches off the ground. I couldn't climb through them if I wanted to. I have no idea how I did it. If I come up over this hill, I ranged the bush behind him. It was 60 yards. I said, well, now or never. We got 20 minutes left of light. Pull back, set my pin on 60 yards, pull back. Thought I hit him pretty decent. Hit him. Travis comes up to me, so what happened? I said, I think I hit him hard. And we found blood, and we were pumped up. And Travis, I didn't want to say anything, but that deer was a 160. I said, thanks, Travis. It makes me feel just tons better. Never ended up finding that deer.
no.
where do you think you hit him? Shoulder or what?
Yeah, he was quartering hard to me. I'm guessing I smacked the shoulder.
So let me ask you this, because there might be some of those gear geeks out there wondering this: expandable or fixed blade we're
Fixed
using?
blade all day for me.
So there you go.
Here's the deal. I get expandables, but I am not a good enough shot. The 3 bucks I killed this year all hit either shoulder or hip bone. So I gotta do fixed blade.
Yeah.
Oh, when you're hanging from a sex swing,
I-
swaying back and forth.
I have to.
Oh,
So yeah, we've had our encounters out there.
Yeah, this is the first year we killed. Well, we should go back first where you shot your buck. Sam was out there.
Yep. Our buddy
That-
Sam went out there.
That's who we went with the year before, but he was too good for us this year and went the week earlier.
Yep.
Which Travis probably should have went with him because that's Travis's week. But he ended up
Yeah.
shooting a pretty decent buck out there too. Same spot. Setting up that decoy. I noticed the decoy works better out of state than it does here because that's exactly what he put the decoy up. Buck had full attention on him, and that's how he killed his buck.
yeah, that's. I mean, you even watch those videos, on TV. People are rattling in
Yeah.
bucks and decoying bucks in every other state. I mean, granted, it doesn't always happen, but
The odds are
it'll
better.
happen every now and then. But the odds are a lot less. It seems like in Minnesota.
Well, so every
compared to
buck
other
you pretty
states.
much see out in South Dakota during that time is busted up. So they are. I think the buck to doe ratio is probably a lot different out there
Yeah.
because every doe we've seen this year had a buck on it. There was always 3-4 little bucks running around trying to get to that doe.
And there are people in South Dakota that'll say different,
Yep.
and it all varies on location. No matter if you're talking buck to doe ratio or what works best for food plots or
Yep.
whatever, it's all area dependent. So I mean,
We just had the right area.
yeah, I mean that's what worked in that area. So I mean that's obviously lesson learned. I mean that you can take with you in your bag of tricks for the following year. Wrapping up South Dakota for you two, or what do we got here?
If I get tagged there every year, that'd be my number
Yeah, we
one
got
state.
this last year's. We had to start applying for it, and not everyone's. Before you applied, but you always
Yeah.
got it. I know you don't always get it, but I think I'll keep applying there if the old lady lets me.
I actually went to South Dakota early season too. Here we go.
Oh,
Ended up. So we were sitting. I was with my buddy Sam. We were sitting in the hotel the night before. We drove. So we started this place. Me and Travis normally go. Ended up driving 7 hours next day. We drove around this whole area all night for 2 hours. Didn't see a single deer. The last 5 minutes of light, also we see is one buck. It's in a hayfield by a bunch of hay bales. Well, next night we got to sit by them hay bales.
That's where we're going.
So we were sitting in a hotel that night. I remember watching it. I don't remember what show it was, but this guy had 4 130s on the field. He's like, I don't know which one to shoot. I said, I will never experience that in my life. Next day, we're sitting in the hay bales. and we're just trying to scout, see what happens. $11 over 120 come to this field. I said, what is going on here? Well, next day, we see where they all come from. Next day, I blew my back out trying to push this hay bale. I pushed 3 hay bales into one pile. I sat in between them. It's just chaos 20 minutes before dark. I got bucks coming all over the place. All of a sudden, Sam says, hey, there's one between us. All of a sudden, look, there's about 150-incher sitting right in between us. I said, my God, I don't know. I'm just panicking, sitting on my knees in these hay bales. All of a sudden, good about 130, steps 20 yards away, pull back in between my 2 hay bales, shot him. Shot was high. Couldn't find that one either. So South Dakota.
The South Dakota slump.
Love and hate.
I'm just visualizing all of these listeners that we have in South Dakota, all maybe one of them that is sitting there saying, why are you talking up our state so much?
Hey,
It's out of staters. But I'll tell you what, I will say this about South Dakota. They are adjusting their regulations as they should be, because a lot of out-of-staters are going out to South Dakota.
Well, even last 3 years, how many extra hunt? The first year we went there, we didn't see a single other hunter.
Yep.
2 years ago was crazy. There's hunters all over the place.
And good for them listening to the residents of South Dakota saying, you know what?
Yep.
We have a lot of residents coming in and shooting deer. Let's make some adjustments. And it sounds like they are. Josh, I mean, you do a lot of research and listen to a lot of stuff from out of state and whatnot. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, yeah, pressure trumps all, and they're trying to manage like the happiness of their residents, and and keep like the quality of hunting that they kind of have. So, can you guys even hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
another thing I like about South Dakota too is they let their residents hunt. When's the season open, Josh? September 1st for the residents?
Labor Day weekend, right?
Yep.
September 1.
So for residents, it opens September 1st. And us non-residents can't hunt till I think it's October 1st.
October 1st. Unless you're hunting private
land. Does that
land.
rule apply for private land too?
No.
Or can you hunt private land in September?
I've been going over Labor Day weekend because I got a piece of private that I hunt. So yeah, the way it's kind of they talk about it, it's like any lands tag, which is private or public, or you get a private lands only tag.
Yeah, I was
yelling at me.
No, you're fine, Josh. We're at Travis's place, and obviously there's kids running around here. We don't care. We're not professionals at this, and or
I locked her out of the room.
Yeah, no, we're just winging it. But let's hear a little bit of your out of state experiences this year as well, Josh.
Because
you were pretty fortunate. You had a good year out of state and in state.
So I started off at Labor Day weekend in South Dakota. Opening weekend, it's hot. We hunt a private piece that it's not. I mean, this is like the only time like I wish I could hunt public. At least this year, it's like holy. Normally it's the opposite. God, if I could only have 1,500 acres of private to hunt, that'd be awesome. It'd be way easy. Well, that's the situation we got. But they run a lot of cattle in there, and they change pastures kind of like in that September, October timeframe, and that how they adjust their cattle to the different pastures on that farm like really affects the deer movement. And it's not like flat open grazing pasture. It's big, deep draws and kind of thick cedar patches. So it's not like overly easy hunting. You kind of have to approach it with like a little bit of a hybrid style hunting. So sometimes it's like spot and stock in some pastures with potential to stand sit, and other times it's just you go hang a set in a draw, and you just hope they come by kind of thing, based on historical movement. And, we run some cameras out there, so we kind of have an idea of what's out there. But I would say this year on that piece where we hunt, it seemed like deer numbers were quite a bit down compared to normal. So it was a little bit harder to kind of get on deer. So Labor Day weekend was a bust for me. I only saw one buck, and I wouldn't have even shot him that weekend. He's like a 110 type buck, 100-incher, nothing. Kind of gonna try to hold out for something bigger, and so that was my first hunt out there. And then I went back with the rifle tag, so I drew a pretty good unit for the rifle season, and I shot a pretty nice mule deer. that was when I was planning on hunting for like 10 days and really sorting through the deer and holding out for a real big one. But the first afternoon I showed up, there was a buck that I just couldn't pass on, so I shot him. And, this is just a real solid 4x4 with some brows, and not a giant, but he's a real nice buck. Can't complain. And he would have been one if I wouldn't have shot him and then hunted for 10 days and didn't see another one that size. I'd have been real pissed. So I know there's big ones out there, but that was a real good representative of a mature buck for that area. So and then I went back to South Dakota over Christmas break, and I saw 3 deer total, a doe and 2 fawns while I was hunting on that private piece. And then that was a tough trip. But I can't say it was overly exciting year for me out of state because I didn't have like a lot of super good encounters other than the mule deer I shot. But kind of when you're a bow hunter, killing them with the rifle is just a little bit different. It's still fun. I love shooting them. I just like shooting them no matter what, but it's not that up close and personal. You don't have the 20-minute standoffs. You don't have the, rattle them in close. It was more of a see them from a distance, try to get within, 300 yards and get the bullseye on them.
So, you had a pretty good year all the way around, Josh. We'll transition unless you want to elaborate any more out of state information or hunt.
So so if you get private land tag though, you don't get to hunt public land, correct?
No, you can still hunt. Yeah, if you get a public land tag, it's an any lands tag.
The private land tag
No.
Go ahead, Josh. Josh, explain this because I was confused too.
Very confusing.
I was confused, and you simplified it for me because I thought being that because like Minnesota, you get a tag, you go anywhere you want.
Go wherever, right?
That's not the case for South Dakota. So just explain, okay? Hear me out here.
Yep.
Just explain what each tag is good for.
Yeah. So I drew. So listen, I'll just give you my scenario. To probably be the easiest way to explain it. So I put in for the any lands archery tag, the statewide archery tag, right? So it's good for private or public lands. I didn't draw that, but I knew I was still going to hunt that ranch in central South Dakota. So I bought the private lands only like over the counter tag. So I had an archery tag that was good for just private land, and then I put in for the West River rifle. And when you draw a West River rifle tag, like the general West River rifle, there's special. When you get into the rifle tags, they got a whole bunch of like special West River. They got all sorts of different ones. But if you just put in for like a general any deer West River rifle tag, it's good for public or private lands. Did that clarify it?
Yes, definitely. No, yeah. It's good to know because it's important information that people need to understand, especially people from Minnesota. I know a lot of people from Minnesota that head out to South Dakota and do some hunting out there. But you definitely want to know the rules because if you got a private lands only tag, private lands only means private land only. That's
right.
All you can do.
Yep. Oh. Yeah, and that doesn't. So walk-in, and even though walk-in is technically private, that's still considered public. Exactly. So basically, you can only hunt only private. It can't be plots. Yep. It can't be CRP. It can't be any sort of private land enrolled in a public land system.
Yep.
If that kind of clarifies it some more, because I know that probably some people think, well, walk-ins, that's private land, but it's not. It's technically so like, the way it's leased out by the state, so the state runs the hunting side of it.
Yep. Yeah, and if you have any questions, I highly recommend just contacting the state conservation officer office, whatever the state, and just asking them questions if there's any misunderstanding. But let's transition back into Minnesota here. Obviously, Josh, you had a heck of a year. Essentially, you killed right at that time when all hunters want to kill, right? Because everybody wants the first crack at that big buck. So you're like, I want to try to get him early season. But the downfall of shooting a deer early season is you don't really get to enjoy the rest of the rut and the pre-rut and the post-rut and late food sources, all that stuff, unless, you know,
Right.
whatever you're party hunting, whatever.
Yeah.
That's a whole different topic. But you tagged out right at that prime time, just before firearm season here in Minnesota, which is the first weekend in November.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, if you just, I mean, we covered it on another podcast real quick, but maybe for those people who didn't hear, I mean, obviously you were chasing a pretty good deer, and yeah, you were able to get him on the ground.
Yeah. So I guess long story short, there was actually I got him right here.
No, you don't. Ah, there he is, people. Yes, sir.
Goodness.
All right, you guys are gonna have to check out the YouTube channel. I apologize on our half; it's black and white for some reason. Josh has
Yeah.
color.
So I mean, he's a great buck, like probably
Yeah.
mid 50s, upper 50s, maybe 60s type buck. Great buck for the area. It's one that I kind of known about for a few years, being in the area, and kind of my whole strategy going into this year was the piece of property I hunt has a river bottom or a river runs through it. I got a couple pieces of property that I hunt along this stretch of river, and I kind of my whole strategy going into this year was end of October, just kind of based on like year over year information of when, you know, these bucks tend to start moving out and when they start to cruise. And I've noticed that on the pieces I hunt that, you know, they start to hit these scrapes and really start moving around the end of October on this specific property where I shot him. So I kind of had 3 stands set up that kind of pinched down along this river corridor. And I knew just that last week of October going into, you know, mid-November, I was basically just going to pound out 2 or 3 stand sites until I caught up with one, you know, near like active hub scrapes, if you want to call them that, you know, big scrapes, ones that, you know, I've got a lot of history, you know, with trail cam datas over the years. So, you know, historically when I hunt, I try to do, you know, first sit's your best sit and bump around and really not try to scent up one area. But this year I kind of went in with a little bit more of the approach of just grind out one area, because, you know, eventually something's going to come by that's good, right? So you're always trying to balance like what the different tactics are and trying to kind of pave your own like your own skill set, I guess, or your own style of hunting per se.
Yep.
I guess is a way to put it. So I'm trying to kind of hone in on my style for these properties. I don't think every style necessarily carries over to each property, but in this case, I kind of had I'm getting a better feel of what I need to do every year to start killing, you know, some of these better bucks. And so again, going back to this one, I knew that, you know, October 26th to November 10th time frame is like, I'm just going to grind out this area. So starting that November 25th-ish time frame, I sat these 2 different stands, and I mixed in a third one every now and then along the river. And sure enough, on the 30th, October 30th, he came out and did it kind of exactly how I envisioned him, kind of coming to check out this scrape. And I was able to put one in him at like 25 yards, 30 yards.
Yeah,
So.
things amazing. It's what's cool is we're kind of all in a Snapchat group, and I remember that day, you know, to a T. That was like our first real cold front with snow. Yeah, and it was coming down, and like it was cold, and then all of a sudden it started snowing, and you just felt warm with that snow coming down. I'm like, if someone shoots a buck tonight, it is going to be so memorable because of the setting that we were in that night. It was phenomenal, and all of a sudden, Josh sends out the text BBD or the Snapchat BBD, and we're like, no way. And then all of a sudden, Josh kind of let me in the loop a little bit on which buck he was chasing, and it was that buck. I'm like, no way. And from where I live to where Josh lives, it was what was like a Thursday or something. What day was it? It was a weekday.
Monday.
Yeah. It was a Monday, because I remember like, oh my gosh, like it's late already. I'm going to drive all the way out there to hang out with Josh for a while and see this buck. But I'm like, this is what you do. This is what we do.
Yeah.
Like,
it only comes
it
around
doesn't
once
matter
a year,
what time
you
of
know?
night. I mean, you make efforts to go see, you know, the deer that we harvest and hang out and celebrate these moments, because essentially, besides family. I mean, this is kind of what we live for is hunting, and that's what makes it a lot of fun. But yeah, you had a slammer of a year, and it was perfect timing. Obviously, the later on that week turns into rifle and all heck breaks loose. But
Yeah.
as bow hunters, that's a fun time of year.
Oh, for sure.
Let's go to Travis. Travis, your standards coming into this year based off of your intel that you had leading into the season. Now, things to remember, there was a drought this year. There was a bad winter last year. Like things you saw throughout the year, and then like kind of what was your standard to harvest a deer this year, and basically how did it turn out?
Well, it turned out not good. It was a pretty poor year, to be honest. So going into the year, going back to the last spring, finding sheds, we found a decent amount of sheds. One buck that we found in our creek that Schnaub's found that is a buck that I did not know about. I thought this is the half. We found half the size of 6-point size. Like this could be something. No idea whatever happened to that buck. Never seen it. No one shot it or had pictures of it. So that was one buck I thought could be something, but we never saw him or nothing. Started getting pictures of deer. There was some I don't know, a lot of decent bucks, but nothing that a guy really wanted to shoot, I guess. I mean, they were good. They were on the edge, I guess. There's a handful of them. One buck, the old Shrek buck that we've known I don't know, 4 or 5 years now, pictures of him, was on camera again.
Is that the tall brow one?
Tall brow.
That
Yeah.
was your first sighting of him this year too, wasn't it?
Well, we had pictures of him like usual, and then this year I actually never had pictures of him once he went hardhorn. Basically, never seen him on the hoof. It wasn't until late December I actually seen him on the hoof for the first time.
You did see him on the hoof?
Mm-hmm.
You did. So explain to these people first before you keep going here what this deer looks like here.
So just 8-point, and from every picture I have of him, he's kind of got he must be injured. It looks like he's kind of got a hump in his back or something. Something's off with him. I don't know what it is, but 8-pointer, maybe 120s. But when you look at him, his tallest point on hes head is his brow tines. They stick up there 10 inches, maybe. The one side's taller than the other, but it's taller than his G2, G3, everything. Like
The highest point, yes. The highest point.
not
on the
lengthwise, but actually, no matter how he turns his
Yeah,
head, his
it's still
brow
the
tine is
tallest.
tall. It's just you know him as soon as you see him.
That's awesome.
He's been that way for 3-4 years now,
Yep.
and it's apparently to the west of us is where he lives. They get more pictures of him there.
What's he live in?
A swamp, so that's why we call him Shrek. He's big, he's ugly, he lives in a swamp.
Get out to my swamp.
So I seen him for the first time. This was end of December, so he should be alive yet. If he would have got shot, I probably would have heard about it, but I don't think he got shot. I don't think anyone's gonna shoot that deer for some reason. Oh, Jack should have shot. Let's call him Jack.
Okay, so yeah. So explain why he didn't shoot him.
So you see him from one side with that tall brow tine, he looks decent. The other side, the points, they're shorter. He's got short tines. He's wide. He's really wide, probably pushing 20 inches wide. But they're short tines, and he's not an impressive looking buck if you looked at him. But if you knew the history of him, he is an impressive buck.
Exactly.
So Jack, this was the week after rifle. Jack sends me this picture. Would you shoot this deer? I'm like, I saw it. It was the week after. I'm just like, Jack, I've been trying to kill that deer for 3 years.
All right, you go and then I'll go. How old do you think that deer is?
So I kind of looked this up. I got 3 years of pictures of him having a decent rack on him. So, if a decent rack's at 2.5, I put him at 6.5 this year, be my guess.
I'm putting him at 7.5 this year. That's what I'd put him at. And we're in the ballpark. We have to be in the ballpark. He's got that big burly body.
And we don't get deer that old around.
No.
It's tough for us to judge that. They get 3.5's kind of the average, I would say. A good buck in this area gets shot.
It's 3.5 every
He's
time.
doing something right during rifle.
He's got something figured out.
He's probably hunting by Steve or living by Steve. That's probably why he's getting played every year. But yeah, that's a target buck. And I mean, the question always comes about, what's a target buck? What's a shooter buck? It's history. It's all area, relative to each area. That's what it comes down to. And this deer here, he's not going to go on the record books as anything, but he's in the record book here. If we find him dead shed hunting, if, he ends up dead this next fall, that's going to be a celebration, because that's a deer that essentially been going after for how many years. And that to us is a trophy, But yeah, so you had Shrek to go after. I mean, obviously every year there's always deer that come through.
Yeah, there was a handful of bucks that there was no giant this year that I don't think that we had a buck that scored over 140. That I would say there were one neighbor had a picture of a good buck. You saw, I don't know if it was a 12 or 11 point, but you could see the 1 6-point side. He looked really impressive, and that buck got shot during rifle. And other than that, they were.
Well, Steve's buck. We thought Steve's buck was that first picture we got of Steve's buck. We thought was a giant.
Velvet. Yeah, I've kind of learned I don't trust velvet pictures.
No.
He was right on the camera. He looked huge.
He did look big. There's a couple bucks that same picture. Or we got our card pull that there was a couple bucks. I'm like, this is gonna be a good year, but he they had it, but you knew when they lost their velvet, they were gonna be. Maybe I should have passed, but Dad shot him. It was that was actually probably the better buck out there.
The tough part about that buck that doesn't do it justice is that it broke off its drop tine. It had a drop tine coming off the base.
It was sweet,
and it had to be at least 4 or 5 inches, probably, huh?
Yeah, it was cool. The picture, I thought that was the drop tine, but we don't get nothing.
I was actually on the phone with Travis that day when we were just talking on the phone. Just about nothing, and he was looking through trail camera pictures while he was talking. I remember the crack in his voice when that picture popped up. It was good.
Drop time.
Yes.
Travis, I got a tip for you to get over that velvet impressiveness. You got to hang them like 6 to 8 feet higher so they're angling down, because then they never look as big.
Yeah, when you're 5'8", though, it's tough to get up that high.
One stick method.
Hey, you got new climbing sticks for Christmas.
Got climbing sticks. I got a saddle now.
Jeez. Here we go.
For the bedroom use.
I'm not even saying I wasn't even gonna go there, Drew.
Good off season. Good off season practice.
Travis, you get up in your saddle again. Okay, let's get back to hunting here. Mike, we'll transition to you, and let's. Oh no, we got to finish up you. Like let's go finish it up.
Yeah. Oh,
we're only an hour and 8 minutes into it.
You want to talk about rifle?
Rifle, not much. I mean, it's the typical Minnesota rifle. I mean,
so let's talk rifle. Did you buy a rifle license this year?
No.
Did you buy one last year?
No.
Did you buy one last year?
No, it's been about 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't. If people rifle hunt, great. It's not my thing. It started off young because I don't know how I said this earlier in the podcast because I kind of butchered it, but we milk cows. I milk the cows. It's kind of my thing. Rifle. I have high school help, and in this area, everyone rifle hunts. So come rifle hunting, opening morning, getting help. It hasn't worked forever. So it's just easier for me to stay in the barn, milk cows,
shut the phone off,
not have that anxiety of hearing all the gunshots. It's a real thing.
He has it on repeat. He has the radio on repeat. So you had a bad day.
Rifle hunt's fun, but I like bow hunting. That's my thing. So I don't rifle hunt. So come the last day before rifle hunt starts, I don't know. It's my season kind of feels like it's over until later in the winter, until we get snow, we get cold, deer come in. Then I kind of get fired up again. That's why I like our South Dakota hunt. Time to get away and just kind of start hunting again, kind of. But for the rest of the year, I saw one, maybe 2 deer I would have pulled back on if they'd have came in range, but never had a real good crack all year. It was a tough year, but there wasn't a ton to go after, in my opinion.
Yeah, there wasn't really that buck where it's like, man, I got to get out every single possible night to try to get this thing down.
One buck I kind of liked. He had the same time we got Dad's drop time buck. He had a split G3. It was kind of a cool, kind of had a wavy main beam. And
Yep.
I did not see him on the hoof, but I'd get pictures of him like while I was sitting on a different camera. I would have shot him if I seen him. I probably shouldn't have. It was a maybe 130-ish buck. I don't know, whatever. I never heard of anyone shooting him. I haven't seen him. I don't know, earn anything, but that was really the only buck I was looking at besides Shrek, which Shrek, we've never seen him on the hoof, so I kind of wrote him off all year.
Right.
I just never really planned on seeing him.
Judging by your late season, the deer you've seen, though, you're going to have a decent year next year.
I'm looking
Winter's
for
been
next
pretty
year.
decent. You had a lot of good bucks at the end of the year.
That's going to be a huge difference. If I mean, essentially half the winter's already over.
Yep.
You know, and
Good
the-
winter.
there was a lot of acorns. If you're in an acorn area,
They're still eating them.
yeah,
They're
yeah, right.
browsing wherever
noticed
they
that
want.
too.
Yet there's no. We got a couple inches of snow. They're not usually this. Actually, by end of December, we got 100 deer on our hay fields. They're not even out there yet because they can
Yeah.
browse wherever they want. They're picking through cornfields yet. They're sitting good.
It'll make it interesting too for those people who go out and shed hunt or maybe don't shed hunt. I would recommend going out this year. If your property is a property where you never find sheds, I recommend that you go out there and look for sheds because deer are still spread out.
Yep.
Because there's hardly any snow and the temperatures haven't been bad. Because I've seen a year like this before where the sheds are spread out so much because they don't have to congregate to one area for
Mhm.
thermal cover and for food and all that stuff. So I highly recommend getting out in the spring. Don't go out right now. I mean, what is it right now? January 20th or so, something like that. Don't be going out there right now. You're going to see a lot of crap on social media, people finding sheds. It's that all you're going to be doing is stressing the deer out during this time of year. Just wait. I mean, we've seen deer around Easter time still carrying headgear. And if you want to increase the chances, I mean, I'm not saying don't go out. I did say that, but if you want to go out and enjoy the outdoors, go for it. But if you're hardcore about finding sheds, like by my place right now, I will not step foot in that woods. I want to do TSI. I want to alter my woods to the best of my ability, but I'm not going in there because I know I have some deer that are in there that might be carrying headgear or that might be trying to make it through the winter, that I don't want to stress them out any more than they already are with the coyotes and the wolves and other deer pressure and all that stuff. I wait until everything is dropped or intel tells me that all their antlers are dropped and things are moving in the right direction weather-wise, just to increase my chances of finding sheds and not stressing my deer out, because stress is one of those things too when it comes to antler growth.
Huge.
Stress is one of those factors when it comes to it. But this is going to be one of those years where sheds are going to be spread out a lot more than years when there's a lot of snow. So
Another thing that helped this year too, the DNR finally allowed us to start baiting them during the winter again.
well, feeding them, not baiting them,
not baiting,
feeding
feeding
them.
them.
Yes,
That's correct.
yes. And
Which is a huge thing, I think, for the winter.
you
Unless
look.
you're against it, but I love it.
The thing is you look at the winters we've had. There's been deer dying because of that. The thing is, you got to be smart about when
Yes.
feeding, though. People need to understand. You gotta ease them into it, right? So, and don't quote me. This is my belief, all right? So this is my belief. This isn't factual, whatever. But you can't sit there and all of a sudden, come February, throw out a pure alfalfa round bale in an area that doesn't have any alfalfa or anything. You can't expose them to something that they're not already consuming, right? And deer are built to survive off of minimal stuff. So like throwing out, 50 gallons of corn or a full alfalfa round bale right now, let's say, okay, in a month when it's February, like that's just going to throw off their digestive system. You got to ease them into it. So like I haven't fed anything this year. I've got enough corn and stuff in my field where they've been just fine. However, if I were to, I would have had a bale out there already, and I have enough corn, so I don't even have to worry about corn, but I would have exposed them to that earlier so that their diet could have adjusted to it. But that's just whatever, my beliefs, and everyone has their own beliefs and whatnot, but that's just me. But I don't know. We'll move on from there. Let's get back to it because we're starting to get a little long here. Mike, but I don't care. You know what? This might be the only podcast of the month, and I think we got 3 hours worth, and we're only halfway. If you look at it, we're only an hour and 15, but it's fun. So, Mike, expectations coming into the year, and kind of what transpired.
My expectation this year, there's one particular piece of property that I hunt pretty heavily. We call it Oak Ridge, and that's where my wife Sarah and I both hunt in a stand. And earlier in the podcast that I did, we talked about this giant 8-pointer that we had out on that property last year, and it's the one that my dad let go at like 7 yards because he knew it was my buck. He's still kicking himself for that. We talked about it earlier in the podcast, my previous podcast too, that buck showed up on camera this year, so he was still alive. So I think going into the season, that was definitely one of the bucks that I had in my mind of the one I was after. That property we had, last year was garbage with the drought. We didn't really have much for food plots out there. Our corn didn't turn out. We did have alfalfa out there, which turned out okay last year. But this year for the season, we had tons of corn. We had it mixed in with beans, and those deer just stuck around there, which was awesome to see because it's kind of it's a small property. It's a 30-acre property, but it doesn't always hold a lot of deer there. It's kind of a passing ground for some of those bigger bucks. Not a lot of woods, and so we do with what we have. But this year, it was some of the only food in the area that actually turned out really well. And so I think those deer stayed in there, especially this late season. Now you still see them out there with the beans. So that was kind of my standard, I guess, going in this year, was to try to get after that one. There was a pretty nice tall 8-pointer that I was kind of looking at too, and my brother ended up getting him, sat in my stand and shot him, which is fine. He's like, I think he was like between 150 and 120. I mean, he's a decent buck. The Mathiasons, except for me, really had a good season this year. So he ended up going out to the new property we got and got another one that was about the same size. And then my dad was able to harvest another a decent buck on the other property that we have. So,
do you have any encounters with that big buck this year?
With that 8-pointer, I did not. I did not see him out there. We had him on trail cam maybe like 3 or 4 times, and all at night. He was just coming out. But that the one my brother shot, the reason why I think I was so excited about that one is because, we had our Tacticam cell cams out there, and so with that having those out there, I was able to pattern that buck, and he was coming out during daylight. And so like I thought I had a really good chance to even maybe get a crack at him, and I was actually really excited because I was taking my, like Joe said, he takes the kids out once a year, and mine's over MEA break. I'm an educator, so I got that time off, and so I always kind of take our oldest out for sure during that time. And he shot that buck the weekend before that. So it was kind of unfortunate because I was pretty excited to shoot something with Juliana. I was able to harvest a doe the year or two before that. And but the real one, I think that kind of became the one we really were after was the big boy that stepped out on our new property. And I don't know, you guys tell me what do you think he would score, but he's got 2 split G2s and a split brow, probably 20 plus inches wide. He's a tank, and I think that's kind of the one that I dreamed of getting. Although I'm pretty excited, hopefully just looking for his sheds, to get an opportunity to find those.
Yes.
Because I want to start building a story. We've never seen that buck before, and so we've also haven't ran trail cams out there until we bought it. So that made a big difference too. So yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think that he'd score? I mean,
just to paint a picture for people. I mean, he's one of those bucks where you can tell he's got good mass all the way out. I don't know if I had to guess, he's probably in that 140 range, somewhere in there, but a tank of a body. I mean, just a beast. He's one of those that I'd be pretty jacked up to find his
big
right?
enough,
I know.
Before you continue here, Josh has got a boogie, but I just want to ask you one question, Josh, that I'm going to ask these guys before they leave. I'm putting you on the spot. Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot. You got time for 2 questions?
Sure.
Okay, all right, here we go. Based off this last year, what rule changes would you like to see the state make?
That's a good question. Oh,
Or maybe something that you like this year that the state changed.
well, I'd say, I mean, I've always been a proponent, and like people can argue it pretty good, but like push the rifle season back a week or 2
Yeah.
would be one I'd be pretty favorable for. That'd be big. I know if you look at the next year, it is going to be. It's probably one of the latest openers we can get. So we actually get like
birthday. Yeah.
we get like a week
Anyways,
and a half of November
Cheers to
for the
that.
rifle season opens. But yeah, I'd say that's probably it. Like management's hard.
Josh, I agree with you. And there are other people that I've listened to on other podcasts that aren't even from Minnesota
Mhm.
that have said Minnesota could be just as good as the big name states like Iowa, Ohio.
Yeah,
We could be just as good as them if we would push our firearm season back.
yeah,
And here, this is what happens. This is what happens, okay? You got people that argue tradition, and you got people that are going to argue, well, in Minnesota, it gets a lot colder, and it's hard to get out there when it's colder. Okay,
Wisconsin doesn't start till Thanksgiving.
yeah, exactly. And the other thing I'm going to say is, you know what? Back in the day when I first started hunting, which is not that long ago compared to a lot of the hunters that are out there, these older hunters, older than me, when we used to go hunting, it was cold and there was
Yeah.
snow almost every single opener.
Yeah,
So now people are worried about the snow and the cold for the opener.
yeah,
That is what we wished for back in the day
yeah.
on the opener.
And I
So-
think there's grounds, there's so many guys crossbow hunting now too that it's like they should push it back because it's just a lot of carryover from the guys that like the rifle hunt that don't want to, shoot a vertical bow or can't shoot a vertical bow. So with the crossbow coming to light, I would say that they should probably, I would, vote for pushing the rifle season back a couple weeks.
It would make a huge difference. And the thing is,
Yeah,
people, okay, so little analogy, right? Everybody wants to be a millionaire, but nobody wants to work for it. You know,
everybody
what I mean?
wants to shoot
Like,
bucks, big bucks.
you want to shoot. Everybody wants to shoot big bucks, but nobody wants to make alter
Right.
things, right? To shoot big deer. So, I mean,
Yeah,
that's
and
what you gotta. I mean, if you want to shoot big deer,
That's good. That's good.
then you got to work for it. Like that's
Right.
just what it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just my thought on it. And you know what? I think differently than a lot of people. And some people just want to go out there and shoot deer, and that's the majority of the state. So whatever. Last thing I want to say. Okay, so you guys, it stinks for you guys because you're getting a heads up. These were going to be these were just going to be hit you in the face, slap you in the face with these questions at the end. But I want to ask Josh this question because you are an engineer for federal, and we're gonna ask you this question. What
Okay.
piece of gear or equipment was a game changer for you this year? Something that maybe you used, or maybe it's just a piece of information or something that was a game changer for you this year. Something that
I'll give
stands
you
out.
2 answers.
Okay.
Information wise, I guess I'm really sold on historical data now, historical information. I mean, I guess like I kind of prefaced it earlier. Historically, I was just kind of it's a 2-part question, a 2-part answer, I guess. So historical information, but then also like you got to hunt the hot sign. It goes with both, right? So like historically, when does this area get hot? When do these grapes get hot? And as soon as you have intel that the buck you're chasing or the bucks are just bucks in general, are starting to hit, you got a photo of them, or somebody said they saw a big one on the alfalfa, behind a doe. It's like, you got to make hay when the sun shines, right? Like it's hard to always get the perfect situation and like the perfect everything. So I would say like get in there and go right off the bat, right?
Sure.
So that would be my piece of information that I feel like is pretty like it's things that we all know, but it's like you got to trust it kind of, which is the hard thing to do. Because a lot of times it comes with risk, right? Like you don't want to bump them out of there, but you got to flirt with that line.
How are you going to kill them? Right.
Exactly. So that, and then a piece of gear this year, I'm kind of a gear guy, a gear junkie in general, but my biggest thing over the last couple of years is like really just trying to tailor my everyday system to where it's just like second nature. I just grab my shit and go. Like I know exactly how my sticks work, my stand set up, because I do hang a lot of sets like on the go.
Yep.
I mean, I got on my permission pieces, I got quite a few, set stands. But if there's something where I need to move 30 yards, I'll just grab my running guns and go. I got a new pack this year that I felt was probably like in terms of like for gear wise and simplicity and lightness and allowing me to be efficient in hanging a stand and being quiet. I felt like that pack was I'm pretty fond of it.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal.
I agree. How about you, Travis?
Well, we're gonna get there at the end. We're saving that one for last.
I don't like to fumble F around. I like to just when I get in the woods, it's just a streamlined system from the truck till I'm set. Like it's just I know my process.
Yep.
No
doubt.
I guess whatever my advice would be, tailor your system, and at some point you can't just be buying the latest and greatest because it's the latest and greatest.
Yep.
You got to find out what works for you, because a lot of the stuff I use now isn't brand new. The only way I'm buying something brand new is if it's like that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so I kind of just like even my bow, like I've been shooting this Matthews Traverse since it was new, but it just shoots for me. I know my arrows. I know I've just been shooting the same system now for the last 3-4 years because it's just been solid, and I trust it. And confidence kills.
Confidence and like just honing down those skills and getting comfortable with it. That is huge. Yep, no doubt.
Yep.
All right, Josh. Well, thanks for joining us. I know you got a boogie here. We'll cut you loose, and I'll continue to drill these guys with questions.
All right. See you guys. Take care.
See you, Josh. So we kind of left off talking about your buck.
Yep.
Okay. Obviously, he's a tank. Looking forward to maybe finding his sheds. But anything else you want to add to basically what your standard was this year and basically strategies you used and how it turned out?
I'll be honest. This year, let's go all the way back to last May. So our youngest, had diagnosed with cancer. So a lot of trips to the hospital over the past year. And to save us some time off from work, we planned those on the weekends, right? Which was nice. You don't have to take as much time off of work. We can go down. So I think my strategy this year was really to hunt when I could.
Yep.
And of course, as I'm doing that, I'm not just sitting in the same stand every night either. I'm trying to kind of bounce around wherever I can make it to. But I think just, really playing the wind as much as I could, trying to get out as much as I could when I was home. So if I went home for the weekend, it was, I'm going to try to get out morning, night, try to hunt as much as I can, because I know I don't have as much time. All year long, it was just like every other year. You see these bucks on camera and you're super excited about it, and then they don't come by you, and that's fine, right? You should be used to it by now.
Right.
But like Josh even alluded to, sometimes you just gotta hammer that one spot until he does come by, especially if there's some sign there that they might. So, as the year went on, I decent bucks, and it wasn't what I was looking for. And, and then there were some, interesting nights where you went out and all of a sudden you hear something, you're super excited, and know it, Joe, it wasn't a gray squirrel, but it was the neighbor's 2 labs running through. Right?
Oh, perfect. Travis! We're not going down that road, mate.
And they come through and they run out in our cornfield, and, it was actually 2, like one weekend, and the following weekend I had the same issue happen. I don't know who the first neighbor's dog was. The second one, he texted me and said, "Hey, sorry, the dog's got out of those things happen, right? It wasn't meant to be anyways. But the end of the season came, and I'm like, I got to get out one last time. And so I went out on a December 30th. And I said, I'm going to sit in the stand, and we had been seeing a decent buck out there yet. And all of a sudden the deer started moving, and I could see them, out in the field, and then all of a sudden they were coming behind me through the woods. And, I'm like, that's got to be a buck. And I had a little spike buck in front of me. He did exactly what I wanted him to. And all of a sudden I kind of ducked down and I put the binocs out, and that buck, the decent buck that we were still kind of after, the one that was kind of a shooter out there, he did like a 45 away from me into the slough, and I couldn't get a shot at him. To go back muzzle loading, when I was out muzzle loading, that same buck came out. And I went to pull the trigger, or pull my hammer back, and my hammer didn't pull back on my muzzleloader. I had him at like 25 yards.
That's right.
And so the breech plug it was screwed in super tight, but it wasn't tight enough, and that hammer didn't pull back. And so I had him, same buck, 25 yards, easy cake shot. But that's hunting, right? And so, but that same night, the last night I was out, I had 2 does come out, and I was able to harvest a nice doe. Dropped her in her tracks, and the other one stood around, and it's funny, right? Because I had a bonus tag, and it's my last night to hunt. I text my dad, should I shoot the other one? And now I'm thinking back, like, what an idiot. Like I had 2 tags that I could use. I could have shot her. She didn't really give me an opportunity to shoot her, but man, I could have had two of them that night. But I don't know. I've never been so excited about shooting a doe in my life. After all the things I've been through this year, it just, even if it's just that kill at the end of the year, that was still pretty awesome.
I think there's a lot to be said about, and I've heard other people say this too. There's a lot to be said on what an individual passes versus what an individual shoots. You know what I mean? Like, you passed up a lot of bucks and end up in the end shooting a doe. Like, think about that from a management perspective, right? You did not harvest the buck, and you harvested the doe. Think about what that does for your deer herd.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You're allowing your bucks to become more mature. You're thinning the herd just a little bit, giving those bucks and those fawns more food to eat.
Yep.
Because whatever that doe is going to eat, now the bucks and the fawns can eat. And along with that, you got some meat in the freezer. You know what I mean? Like what you did for the deer herd by taking a doe and passing up other bucks does a lot more than shooting a smaller buck or whatever the case might be. So I think there's a lot to be said for that situation. To be honest with you, to jump the gun, that's basically what ended up happening to me. I saw some bucks this year and ended up shooting a doe. And I was, like you said, I was pretty excited. It was a 36-yard shot, and I thought it was a pretty darn good shot. And, I got meat in the freezer, and now I just eliminated one doe that's been eaten on my field. That gives fawns and other bucks opportunities to eat the food that she would have been consuming. Plus, I got some venison to make. So, there's something to be said about that too. But yeah, so that's cool. You were able to end up getting one with the bow late season too. That's another thing too, because anyone who hunts late season knows that deer are on edge hardcore come late season. But no, that's a great way to end the season there by taking a doe. That's pretty sweet. But Rucker, let's hear your Minnesota experience this year.
I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty over this state.
Let's cut to the chase, man. Let's cut to the chase.
I've had a lot of fortunate years on good property where I've had some mega bucks on camera. I've hunted hard for the mega bucks.
And let people understand this who are listening.
Okay, so one got poached. That one was 189 inches that I hunted. That one cost me probably a relationship almost.
And like you said, when we're talking big bucks, magnum bucks, like this is the caliber we're in. One, what was it? 180?
189 and 4/8. That one ended up being. And then next year, I wasn't having very good luck on my cameras, but all of a sudden, I think I called Joe actually, because the landowner kept saying there's a big non-typical here.
Oh, yeah.
And I kept seeing early season scouting. I seen his drop time about 120, 125. I said, okay. I said to the landowner, I said, he's not that big. I'm telling you, he's big. Also, I think it was mid-October. I called Joe up because I just checked my trail cameras. I said, look at this. That thing was, he ended up getting shot next year. He was 204, but when I got him, he was definitely 180.
What?
Couple drop times.
That was Bender?
Bender. And he lived
What-
up to his
what?
name because I went on a couple benders over last year. But so I was very fortunate 3, 4, 5 years in a row to be chasing definitely some booners. It was Joe coaxed me into not shooting this about 140-inch 8-pointer that came out religiously to kill this buck. And what ended up happening, we were in South Dakota, me and Travis
We're on our way out.
Yep. And just this nice old guy making some coffee and smoking some wieners over a bonfire midday. And he would have shot the first fawn that walked out, but just so happened to be a 204-inch drop tine buck. And I was pretty not happy for the rest of our South Dakota trip.
I don't know. The Minnesota, I mean, obviously there's pockets of good deer or whatever, but I mean,
It's hard.
It is difficult. There's a lot of swamps. There's a lot of big woods, all that stuff. It's a challenge. But here's what I will say. So like when I kind of factor in, what is a shooter and whatnot, every year, okay, and some people might disagree with me, but every year, every property or every section will have at least a 140-inch buck run in that area. So in my mind, every hunter will have an opportunity to hunt a 140-inch deer.
100%.
When those 180s, 170, 160, 160 plus, 150 plus, when those 150 pluses come around, those are the deer you hold out for because you don't know when you're going to see another 150 plus. So that's when, in my mind, you go chips all in and say, you know what? If I eat tag soup, I eat tag soup. I might not never have another opportunity to shoot a 150 plus. But I firmly believe that every section has a 140 running around. If it's not your section, it's the section over, whatever. There's always 140s running around.
Yeah, I just lucked out, and the section I'm in has had some stupid good genetics.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it's frustrating because you don't end up shooting a deer, but at least you were targeting something that was possibly a once in a lifetime.
I've
buck for some
encountered
people.
some big deer in my life. Just
Dang
has
it.
not capitalized.
So in the end,
This year, Travis let me come over to the farm a little bit, pass some decent 100 inches, 110 inches, and be honest, all my focus was in out of state this year. I had 3 out of state tags, and that's where all my focus was.
that's my goal, like for next year and the year after and the year after. Find some more states to get into and hunt.
Yeah,
Because obviously you were in a bunch of states this year and you can't go wrong.
no, you can't. And it's just something different because
It's an adventure.
we love Minnesota, but it's strange. It's very, like I said, going from early October seeing 11 120 pluses in the field to coming back here hoping to see a 120 was very difficult for me.
It is. And
And this year was very hard with the drought and stuff. And
Yep.
it was a hard year for Minnesota.
No doubt. And I feel the same way too. When I come back from South Dakota, I'm like, all right, let's grind it out and hope something
grind.
happens. You know what I mean? Like I hunt in an area that's highly populated with wolves and coyotes, and it's a great area. It is a great area. 5 miles down the road have been some magnum shot out of Camp Ripley. I mean,
You even got some decent landowners too around you doing the same thing, managing, but it's just hard here.
it is, and that's why you need to take those opportunities to get out of state, and that's what I want to continue to do. Now, I waited to talk about my out-of-state encounters
Go
as
ahead.
far as South Dakota goes
ahead.
because these guys were butchering me after my.
I was not happy with you. During the rut, I was not happy with you.
So obviously, I went out to South Dakota early season, mid-October, and I go out there with my uncles and kind of doing a midday, not even a spot and stock. It was a spot and stock, but more or less I was walking these cuts and coming over the top of these cut banks because the wind was blowing right in my face. And if you don't know what a cut bank is, it's basically where water washes out the soil, and it has washed out throughout the years so much that it's like anywhere from 3 feet deep straight down to 100 feet straight down. So I'm walking these cuts and the wind's blowing in my face, and I'm walking to the north. So the sun is at my back, right? And it is about 75 degrees. So the only shade is on the south side of the cut, right? So I'm coming from the south, walking north, and the wind is blowing in my face. And as soon as you look down, there's shade, and that's where these mule deer were bedding. So I'd come over the top, and there's shade, and the wind's blowing in my face, so they can't smell me. They're in shade. It was a perfect setup. And I come walking over the top, and I'm walking this cut, and all of a sudden next to me, boom, there goes a coyote, takes off running. I'm like, dang it, I got to slow down. So I motored down, I slow down, tell myself, slow down, walk slower. And I come up over the top of this cut, and all of a sudden I see antlers. And all of a sudden he moves his head and he looks up at me, and it was a mule deer, and he was actually still in velvet. So I don't know if there was something wrong or it was a antler doe or what. But he hops across the cut, and he's at about 25 yards, and he stops and looks at me, and I'm at full draw. And I'm like, nope, first day out here. I got 3 full days to hunt, not shooting it. Like I said, it's like 75, 80 degrees. It was hot. So go through and end up seeing a few more deer. My uncle ended up missing a doe, whatever. We go back to the hunting shack, and we get showered up. I got showered up and started focusing on, okay, there was a spot that I saw when I was out here turkey hunting that I know is going to hold deer, because we were kicking deer out of there left and right come turkey hunting. So I'm like, okay, this is the area that I'm going to go and hang a stand, but I'm not going to go in deep into this spot. And what it is, basically, it's a creek bottom, river bottom with some timber, and it kind of oxbows out. And there's some tall grass and a lot more trees for deer to bed down. So I head out there to hang a stand, and it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 75 degrees. And all of a sudden I go through this gate, I shut the gate, and I look up, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Here's a Magnum 10-pointer out there. Just, I mean, he wasn't wide, but he was tall. And, you know, he's for sure in the 150s, for sure 150s. And I was kind of handcuffed. He was there already, and he was staying out in the field. So I just kind of set up a stand and hunted it where I was at the time, hoping that he was going to continue to work his way my way. He never did. So that was that hunt. And then I go back out there later on. And I knew in my mind I was going to go into this spot where I saw this buck, because I know bucks are going to be traveling this area come rut. I don't remember what day it was exactly. It was after our rifle season. So it was like the week before Thanksgiving, I think it was what it was. So I was to go out there, and I'm going to the spot, never been to before. It is pitch dark out. I got my headlamp on. And if anyone's ever hunted South Dakota and you're trying to find a straight tree to put a stand in,
good luck. Me. I got an arrow missing because of it.
Good luck. So anyways, I'm going in, and I'm like, I would really like to be in this spot. Nope, can't. There's no trees. I was so close to hanging my stand on a telephone pole. I was going to do it. And I'm like, nope, can't do it. So I move off to the side a little bit, hang my stand, and I am sweating beads, right? I dressed light, and I'm still sweating beads, putting the stand up. I spent $1,000 before I went out there. I needed to get a stand. I needed to get a bow, because my bow at the time was sent out with Mike out to Massachusetts. I'm like, I really want to hunt South Dakota. So I had an older bow. I went and got it dressed up at Archery Country up in Baxter. New sight, new arrows, new stand, new climbing sticks. Like I had nothing. So,
brand new man.
So I'm over $1,000 deep before I even leave, right? So anyways, I get out there, I hang the stand, and I'm just making noise left and right. And if you're gonna get in a straight tree in South Dakota, you're gonna be about 5 feet off the ground. That's it. You ain't getting any higher than that. So anyways, as I'm just about ready to climb up in the stand with my gear, I had the stand set, go back down, grab my gear, ready to go up the stand. Here comes a buck walking right at me, and it's like a 1.5-year 6 point or something, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, I was making a bunch of ruckus. What are they thinking out in South Dakota? There's a fight going on. Right. You know what I mean? So he's coming into that, checking it out. And plus he was young and dumb, So he comes walking in. I'm like, all right, let's get in the stand. Things are going to happen. And so I get up in the stand, and all of a sudden I see this buck running the top of this ridge. So I'm down in a river bottom, a creek bottom, and I see this buck running the top of this ridge, and right below it is a coyote running this buck. And they're running side by side, and I'm like, oh man. So whatever, coyote runs through. A half hour later, all of a sudden I hear this ruckus coming my direction, and here's a doe and a fawn and a small 8-point, 2.5-year-old 8-point running my direction, bird dogging them, going after him. All of a sudden, a doe and fawn take off, and all of a sudden he comes right underneath me. Like I said, my feet were probably 8 feet off the ground at most. I am not that high up in the tree. And he comes right below me, and he starts ripping this tree apart, making a scrape. All of a sudden he stops, and he looks back the direction he came from, and he lets out a grunt, lets out another grunt, and runs back that direction. I'm like, okay, obviously there's some deer over there. And all of a sudden I see this deer. Well, I saw a glimpse of a deer, and then all of a sudden I hear branches breaking, and I could tell he was making a scrape. And all of a sudden he started coming our direction. I saw the side profile of him, and the side that I was seeing from him wasn't his good side. And I'm like, okay, that's a decent deer, whatever. And he kind of makes this loop around right next to the telephone pole where I was going to be sitting. And he loops around, and prior to this, I did all my ranging, right? So I'm ranging spots. And there was one spot that I was looking at, there was this down tree, and it was kind of 45 degrees at me, and I could range the front of the tree, and that was 30 yards. And then the next range that I could find, because it was all grass, there was nothing that stood out in that grass that I could get a range on. The next thing that I could range was 50 yards. So I had 30 to 50 in between, right? So whatever. And the sign that I saw was coming right by my tree, so I really didn't worry about it a whole lot. So anyways, this buck comes through, and he loops around, and where does he go? On the backside of this tree that I ranged, where I'm at 30 and 50, and I don't know what's in between. So he comes in, and he stops, and it is dead calm. I mean, it is dead calm. In South Dakota, it's kind of crazy, but there wasn't a breath of wind. Anyways, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I felt handcuffed, and in the moment, I maybe could have made an effort to get a range on him, because he did look away at one point, but I thought I was done for right away, basically. And I've been bow hunting a while now, and I've wounded some deer, and I've harvested some deer. And in my mind, I was like, if I don't know that exact range, I'm not throwing an arrow. I'm not throwing it, because I don't want to wound it. I'm going to shoot a deer, and I'm going to kill it. Like when I release an arrow, I'm shooting to kill. I'm not shooting to hit. I'm shooting to kill. And I was like, I can't do it. I didn't know the range. I let him go. And the other factor was I'm hunting on somebody else's property. And if I'm hunting, if they're giving me permission to be on their property, they trust me being out here. And I'm not going to go up to them and say, yep, I wounded a deer. And then the next year, yep, I wounded another deer and wounded another deer. Guess what? I'm not going to be invited back the next year. So all this stuff's going through my mind. But the biggest thing is if I'm going to shoot this deer, I want to shoot it to kill it. And I let him go. And he stopped, and going back looking at the film, it was a mature deer. It was an 8-point. He had some long beams on him. He was a really, really good deer that most people would not pass up. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. The other thing was I was shaking like a leaf. I was shaking like a leaf.
I get it.
And what's crazy was I started shaking when that little 8-point was underneath me, because I knew something big was out there, because he went running over in that direction, and he come over. And so he walks by. I had to pass him up. I got a video that I'm going to be releasing here shortly. But yeah, you'll see him. And then later on in the day, these bucks just kept coming through this bottom here, looking for does. And there was a good 6-point. I sent you guys that video, that 6-point, and he was going to get an arrow. He was going to get an arrow, but
6-pointer.
he just did not come in. But I wanted to make one more trip out there, but I couldn't. And that kind of concluded my South Dakota hunt. I had 3 shooters that I saw out there on 3 separate hunts. I mean, it was a great hunt. Couldn't ask for anything more besides, bringing home a deer, but that experience was awesome. Back here in Minnesota, my property, I really didn't have a shooter around. The biggest buck that we had on camera, and I talked to a lot of neighbors, was probably a 125, and that's not what I'm looking for. So I really didn't hunt my property. I hunted some permission properties. There wasn't much luck over there. Like I said, there's a lot of predators around there. However, it was late season. I want to say it was December 28th-ish or no, it wasn't that late. It's like December 21st. And kind of around like when those fawns come into estrus or that second rut or whatever, I had a Magnum show up, and more or less he was probably looking for something that came into estrus. I don't know if he was a Monster 8 or a huge 10, but he came in, so I hunted around that time, and I just didn't see anything. The deer population isn't very high over there. When I go out, I'm lucky to see 1 to 2 deer, but it's a phenomenal area. But the Timberwolves run that area more than the deer, so that kind of concluded that. There was another property that I hunted that we had a really nice 10-point on camera. I know my brother went out there on the last day of firearms and was able to get a shot at him. He's a tank of a deer, so hopefully he's around up there. But basically, I ended my season like you, Mike. There was a nice doe that come out. I think it was 35, 36 yards. And, I ended up getting her, so I got some venison to make. So that's, to me, it was an exciting year. I saw a good deer. Made a lot of memories, and to be honest with you, that's the one thing you can bring with. It's not always the success, but it's the failures that you remember and the experiences that you have. Because I mean, even look at like you guys going out to South Dakota, just the stupid things that have happened that you're going to remember forever, But that kind of concludes mine. What's next, Travis? What's next moving forward in the hunting world? Because in all honesty, every day we're thinking hunting. So like, what's on your mind right now?
Right now, so it's getting to be end of January. We're looking at shed hunting. So this year we can but re-feeding deer. Last year we couldn't. So we haven't been feeding them a lot because they can eat wherever, but just for trail camera inventory, see what bucks are out there. We've been getting the cameras going. I'm looking forward to shed hunting.
Going back to the feeding, there's not anything that you're feeding that they're not exposed to right now.
No, so
everything that you're feeding has been brought from those fields that you're still leaving standing.
Basically, so corn and hay. In our hay, it's not pure alfalfa. It's like it's a meadow grass. It's a grassy with a little bit of clover in it. It's not a high protein grass. It's something just to let them munch on. They kind of come to the camera, they chew on it, and it's not. I don't know. We've given them hay bales before, like alfalfa bales, and they'd get in the shits. When you look 10 feet from the camera, like they got shits out there.
Yep.
And corn, our cameras are right by cornfields. I mean, they go out there and they're exposed to it. We are a very egg-rich area. There's a lot of egg around. We leave corn up for the deer. We have our alfalfa fields. We give them, they're used to. So just kind of getting inventory, waiting for the antlers to drop and go pick up some sheds.
How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I don't know. I think very similar, right? Just we're still running our trail cams, seeing a lot of deer, seeing some bucks still sparring and having some fun, I guess. But just waiting for one of those antlers to pop off, do some shed hunting. Starting to think about maybe like how we're going to change food plots next year or where we're going to add more. Analyzing what we have in our food plots this year and how well it's kept the deer on our property has been pretty important. So I think starting to do that work. My dad joked, he said, man, it's so warm, we might as well get in the fields in a couple of weeks already and
start ripping it up.
So
ripping it up.
next week's supposed to be like 40, 45 degrees out, so it's
the next
crazy.
2 weeks, it's going to feel like spring.
Yeah. So I think, right now it's just waiting for them to drop their antlers, get out there and, like I said, reanalyze what we still have and start dreaming about next year.
Well, you recruit.
I'm a little different. I'm pretty excited about this spring. I'm gonna go out to some different states, do some scouting, do some shed hunting, see what I can do a little bit of door knocking if I could, see what we can find, go to new spots, check them out. I'm hoping there's a good chance I get my Kansas tag this year, so I'd like to go out and do a little early season. Just
how many year process is Kansas? Is that 3?
It depends. Well, the thing is, usually your first year applying, you got a good chance, but we missed it this year. But
sure,
if you got a couple points, you got a good chance of getting it. And this year, I should get it. So I like to just go out and check out what the land looks like. So when I get down there, I know what I'm getting into and stuff. That's probably about my biggest off season.
And I want to say, I might be wrong here. I might be wrong. But I thought Kansas used to be over the counter, and they've switched it to an application.
Pretty much every state now is switching. Missouri's about the only one left, but like Wisconsin
And
Minnesota. If you want to
hey, let's go. Show up,
Oh,
people.
man.
Everyone's
You want to trade Kansas on for Minnesota?
Hey,
Hunt,
we're
let
in
me
for it.
know.
Hey, if you guys want to trade hunts, I'll give you my property if you give me
I'll
your
get you a
property
couple
down there.
forecorns. But yeah, a lot of states are switching that. Nebraska now, I know they've passed a rule this year or this week that now you gotta have to start applying for their
Yep.
tags too. And that used to be an over-counter situation too. But
Yep. Yeah, so it's interesting to see what these other states are doing and what we're doing. You know what I mean? It's
we're
just
not doing nothing.
well, it's just I don't know. We'll see what happens here in the future. But as far as what's next for me, kind of like you said, scouting, right? Like, my job doesn't really allow me to get away from home a whole lot, so I'm going to be doing scouting around home, around the area. Maybe trying to find some of those new permission properties. That's my goal each year to maybe try to find one more scouting property or permission property. Sorry. Yeah, and the other thing too is, I'm still running my trail cameras just to kind of see what's out there. You never know. All of a sudden, there's something that shows up that you haven't seen before. How many times, out here have we seen a buck show up in January, February that we haven't seen before, and all of a sudden, boom, there he is. Because you have the food source. But that's one thing I'm doing. The other thing, what's next is you talked about shed hunting, Travis. This year, obviously, we're working with Tactacam and we're running a lot of reveals and cell cameras. The one thing we've noticed is that there's been a lot more people around our areas, and we have had to deal with some trespassers, as have other people have as well. But the one thing we're doing to help deal with trespassers is, especially this year, we're going to be hanging up a lot more cell cameras throughout the property where we do a lot of shed hunting, because we've had people sneaking in to our properties and doing some shed hunting, early shed hunting. So I know I have multiple Tactacam cell cams. Travis does, Mike does, Rucker does, and we're going to kind of load them up because, to be honest with people, I don't know why you would even chance trespassing with the amount of technology that is out there, and having your picture posted on social media or turned in. We were just talking before we started the podcast about someone that was caught poaching, trespassing, and it's a rough ordeal. But that's what we're going to do, because obviously it's been an issue, and hopefully it isn't always an issue, but there's always that chance. So we're going to be running a lot more cell cams this year just to make sure people aren't doing things they're not supposed to be. So that's kind of what's in store with me. I also am going to be doing a lot of TSI work, but like I said, I'm waiting until all the antlers are dropped and the deer are kind of back on the rebound as far as spring goes and weather goes. So I'm going to kind of stay out for a little while yet. I'm going to transition. Last thing here, we got two questions for each one of you. Travis, rule changes you would like to see the state here of Minnesota implement?
Oh boy, I was with Jock. I've said for quite a while I want the rifle season to get pushed back.
Yep.
It's probably very selfish, but I feel like we would see way more mature bucks, big caliber deer get shot, and people that want to shoot deer for meat, they'll still have
that opportunity.
That's whatever. You can cry to me about it, but and I hope that gets done someday. I really think it's going to be a big game changer.
It will be. Like there's no denying it. There's no denying, but we all know there's politics involved. There's a lot of other things that are involved.
It's not the biology side of thing. It's money. There's a big money push there, and I think most people see that, and a lot of people don't see it. That probably still want it the way it is, and the way it is.
Yeah, 100%. So rule change, Mike.
Yeah, I don't know. I totally agree with you guys on that. I'm in a shotgun zone, so I'm not in the rifle zone. But anyway, gun season, whatever. I wouldn't mind seeing. Like, I'm big into like thinking I want to see some big bucks someday, and like even point restrictions.
Sure. Sure.
Other states do that. That's just another way to see some bigger bucks too. And
Sure.
I mean, it takes a little bit longer to get that, going. But no, other than that, I don't know. I think, I just want to see some bigger bucks in the state. Like
And the thing is,
I see a
no
lot of
reason we
115, 120s. Like that's great, but and we know that we might see those 140s and stuff on our property, and I don't know. It just you put in a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money into that, and so it'd be nice to
see some results.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
however we do that in Minnesota, whatever that strategy is, let's start moving towards it. Listen to the people, right?
Yep, 100%. Andrew?
Obviously the rifle season, but for a little side note, I mean, the antler restriction would be a huge thing just to start. And I'm also big on the wolf thing. The wolf thing is really killing us. So if we could look into that a little bit, that would be huge, I think.
Wolves are definitely a factor. If we were to push the rifle season back, would be a huge game changer. I mean, you think about the numbers that are out there that opening weekend. There's 400 and some odd thousand firearms out there, right? Wolves, obviously there isn't that many wolves out there compared to hunters.
Yep.
So the hunters are the ones that make the biggest impact on the deer herd, along with weather. I mean, obviously our winters have been really bad here the last couple of years, which isn't good. But you combine winter with wolves, with the amount of deer tags that are out there, with the firearms being in the peak rut, that's not a good recipe to have good deer numbers, right? The one thing, and I got to look at the numbers. I haven't really looked at the final numbers when it comes to crossbow. The thing is with the crossbow numbers, right? That's a number. There's deer that are killed with crossbows, but in all honesty, I heard a lot of stories about crossbows this year, whether it was wounding deer or taking shots at whatever yardage. You shot at a deer, Andrew, at 100 yards after you already put an arrow into him.
Yep.
You already put an arrow into him at a
Never
manageable
taken
distance.
Yep.
It wasn't I see a deer at 100 yards.
There's a lot of stories. But here's the thing, too, is they're selling these crossbows saying, hey, our crossbow shoots 150 yards.
Exactly.
Now, I've known personal stories, too, that people are shooting deer at 100 yards of crossbows, which is just crazy to me.
Yep.
But
so in all honesty, it's a whole different weapon. It's on a whole different level compared to your traditional archery and compounds, whatever. It's on a whole different level. I would like to see that have its own season.
I wouldn't mind getting rid of this early doe season too.
I've heard a lot of negative.
I get the youth thing to a point, but this early adult doe season, mid-October, then you take a week off, then we're in the rifle, and then take a week off, then we're in the muzzleloader.
It's funny because I talk to a lot of people about hunting, and some people will say this year's been the best year ever, but that is the minority.
Yep.
That is the minority. The people that are saying this was a great year. I mean, obviously you get those pockets where, things are going to be good because you got a hot doe on there or something, and every buck in the area is in your spot. But I don't know. There's so many things out there, but the tough part is majority of these rules and regulations stem from politics and money. It's what it comes down to. Like wolves. Why isn't there a management plan with wolves right now? It's because of politics. 100%. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And hopefully we get something switched there, because I don't know how many people I have heard say that, okay, I'm supposed to introduce my grandson or granddaughter into hunting, and I'm supposed to go up to my deer camp up in Orr or wherever up north, and there are no, I mean, okay, I'm exaggerating here. There are some deer, but there's hardly any deer, and I'm supposed to bring them up there for 2 days and let them sit there in the woods and not see a single deer. Well, that's a great tool to recruit hunters.
100%.
Especially
these kids nowadays, they don't have that patience.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, if we want to recruit hunters, well, then there needs to be deer numbers out there to entice them to become hunters. And right now there's not. And I tell you what, if there was a map right now of Minnesota, there would be a line of deer population decreasing, moving lower and lower and lower in the state of Minnesota. Those deer numbers are going down. And I'm experiencing it right now, right in smack dab of Minnesota. And I know people an hour north of me are experiencing it. And I think it's just going to slowly continue to trickle down further and further down the state until something happens. And I hope something happens. What that is, I don't know, but there needs to be something in place to help manage predators. And then, in return, hopefully those deer numbers come back up and we can get people back in the woods and make hunting what Minnesota should be. I think Minnesota has a lot of potential to be a really good state. I mean, you look to the west of us, we got the Dakotas. We've been talking about Dakotas more today than than Minnesota.
Landscaping state in the whole country.
And then you go to the east of us, we have Wisconsin, which really good hunting. What's right below Minnesota? You have Iowa, one of the best states in the entire United States for whitetail hunting. We are right in the mix of possibly having some of the best hunting around. Something needs to be done. That is, we'll have to figure out along lines here, and hopefully sooner than later. There's my rant.
It was needed, right?
It was needed. Last thing here, Travis. What piece of gear or knowledge? Actually, let's start with Ruckert. We'll start over here.
You're gonna hate.
We went that way, but
You're not gonna like this.
What piece of gear was a game changer for you this year?
My saddle,
or information. It could be information too. Whatever.
Well, information wise is. I mean, you don't always have to get in deep, but the grind. I grinded way harder this year than ever. I know my job allows me to do that compared to you guys, but I spent a lot of time getting in deep and just working hard.
Traveling.
Traveling. I've got a lot.
Spent some road miles.
Yeah, I got a lot of miles, a lot of money invested into traveling, hotels, and all of that.
Oh.
It's panned out. I got $3 this year.
Yeah.
But for gear wise, I know as much as you hate it, the saddle and the Latitude climbing sticks were walking 3 miles back with those light sticks and that saddle was a huge game changer for me.
The Latitude, the ones that you wrap the string around, then you loop it,
and they're super light.
They're carbon.
It was very nice because that walking out with that deer sucked. It was so heavy. That nice little ladder, them sticks, nice light sticks, and that saddle was huge for me. And I killed all $2 of my $3 because of that saddle.
Before I went to South Dakota, I bought a set of those sticks.
Did you?
Yeah,
They're huge, aren't they?
I did.
It's stupid.
I'm getting to know them, but I bought $200 pair of sticks and $200 stand.
Yeah,
and it's still sitting out in South Dakota.
Hey, if it were for
because
Travis,
that's where I'm going next to you. It's worth that investment.
If it were for Travis, mine'd still be out there too. I made him grab them last day.
I took them down that next morning.
Yeah, no, they're nice. They're nice. So information, equipment, so we're good there. Mike,
I got to go with our cell cams. Like we haven't had those before.
Tacticams.
So
yeah,
I think
reveals.
those Tacticam reveals have been a game changer for us in just not only knowing what's out there, but also just being able to pattern the deer.
Yep.
And being able to get out there. You know, you see the buck come every 3-4 days. He's coming to that spot.
Yep.
All right, now I can be out there. If,
Right.
I mean, obviously other factors go into play
Yep.
there, but like, so I think that's been a huge game changer for us.
There's
And we're running, we're running 2 on one property, 1 on one, and then 2 on another. So we
Yeah.
got like 5-6 of them out right now. So
Yep. No, big time.
So, information, I don't know.
Yep.
I mean, the piece I hunt, I'm still learning it. We've hunted our land forever, but this new piece I hunt, it's 3 years now, and my entry and exit I'm still figuring out how to do it, and there ain't a lot of options. I mean, it's one side or the other or down the middle. It seems like we can come around the edges and get our wind right. It's been better. I don't know. It's a goofy, not normal situation, I guess, but this next year I got hunting wise. I got a saddle for Christmas that I think might, if we can figure it out, it might be a game changer because I hunt pine trees. Most guys know, and there's no cover for 20 feet up. I think if I can get on the backside, that might of the tree have that tree
Hide your
for
silhouette.
cover.
Yeah.
But this last year for Okay, grab one. Equipment wise, I didn't have a good most season, but I hunted a lot late season. I carried in the Arctic Shield, the boot covers a lot. My feet,
yeah.
I got bad
I need
circulation or
those
something.
too. My feet
Those
are
are so
terrible.
nice.
Those were game changers for me. I sat a lot this last winter, late season, and them kept me in the stand. I saw a lot of deer. Now I didn't have any close calls, but I seen deer and could have had opportunities because of those boots, I think.
So North Dakota, I was begging for those things when I was out
Oh,
there. I walked
that's
out, it
insane.
felt like negative 19 degrees sitting there. I'm like, God, if the things I do to have these boot covers right now.
It's insane. The tough part for me with that is I carry so much gear in
Right.
that it's tough for me to carry it in. But the majority of people that are out there that hunt don't carry in as much gear as what we do. So I highly recommend, especially if you're bringing out a newcomer and it's cold out. I highly recommend getting these boot warmers because it is, like I said, a game changer. I put these on one time when I was going out, and I knew I was going to be going out for an all day hunt. And I'm like, the only way that I can make this work is if I force myself to bring these boot warmers with. And I put those things on as soon as I got in the stand. And here's my analogy. It is like getting into a bed that is already warm
Oh, it's
and
best
comfortable.
feeling.
Like
Best
seriously,
feeling.
like it's like you're laying in bed, right? When your alarm's going off, but you want to stay in bed. Like that's the feeling that those boot warmers
If
for
you're
me,
not
I have.
comfy, you will not
Oh,
survive. out
you're
there.
not going to make it. And that's their whole motto, right? Stay out longer. That's
Yeah.
their slogan.
Exactly.
And that's what they do. So to go along with, we can't move hunting back because it's colder out and whatnot. Their technology has evolved so much with apparel and all this other stuff. If you can't find the right apparel to go out there and stay warm or just increase the amount of time that you can be out there, you might not be looking hard enough because you know what, Arctic Shield, it's not that it's not expensive. It's not. If you look at other apparel out there, Arctic Shield is probably at the lower end of what things, what the cost is. But I'll tell you what, it's pretty darn efficient when it comes to keeping you warm. That is their focus, is keeping you warm. What I think is a game changer from Arctic Shield is that they did come out with lighter apparel this year. And I wore it out to South Dakota when I was out there mid-October, and it was 75 degrees, and I was comfortable. They provided us with some great attire for early season, which kind of been looking forward to for the past couple of years here. And they provided us with it, and it was phenomenal. I will tip my cap to them for coming out with some early season attire that made things work, and then also with their obviously late season apparel. I talked about how I carry in a lot of stuff. I switched my camera arm to Fourth Arrow camera arms this year. I bet I dropped probably 3 pounds on my backpack because of switching over to Fourth Arrow camera arms. The camera arm is awesome. There's 3 pivot points on the camera arm, so I'm able to loop my camera all the way around the tree instead of hitting the tree with the arm and not being able to get in there. Tacticam, like you said, running these trail cameras that are sending these pictures to my phone. I have instant intel where I can adjust accordingly to increase the odds of me harvesting a deer. Domain still continues to put out great product. I've had deer in my Domain plots since day one. And as soon as this snow melts, guess what? Deer are going to be in those clover plots, hitting those immediately.
It's funny you say that. The deer are still hammering that hall pass out at
Are they?
Fox, hammering.
Yeah.
I mean, like digging it up completely. So it's Domain is. They got some good stuff.
100%. And it looks like they're coming out with another product this year, so I'll be interested to see. And then along with Domain, now Minnesota is able to feed during the winter. They have some great products that'll continue to increase the health of your deer herd. So you really need to check out Domain. And then finally, to piggyback and go back to moving the season back, people always complain it's too cold. People like J&R Outdoors, Jake, he sells enclosed deer stands. Back in the day, there were no enclosed deer stands.
Yeah.
That wasn't
Decent
even a
price,
thought.
too. He's a good price.
That wasn't even a thought. Now all of a sudden we have all of these enclosed deer stands. There's heaters out there, all this stuff. I mean,
I remember I said I will never be a guy that sits in a closed stand. Well, 5 years later, get me in a closed stand.
but not only that, like think about bringing,
Kids.
Your son out there, your daughter's out there, your kids out there, my kids. There's no better way to bring a young kid out in the stand than getting in an enclosed stand. My kids were making so much noise, and I had deer 20 yards away from me. They had no clue we were in there. So, I mean, there are plenty of opportunities out there.
As long as the windows are open, Joe.
Yeah,
I was
right.
just gonna say that.
But I mean, obviously I hit on my sponsors there because that's what we use. But those were game changers for me this year, especially, like I said, with the early apparel from Arctic Shield, that was a game changer. But as far as knowledge goes or information, intel, I learned a lot this year from the drought. Also with the 2 bad winters, that deer really aren't going to put on the amount of inches that they normally would with that extra added stress, along with predators. We did not see a big gain in antler growth this year. And then as far as out of state goes, is boots on the ground, seeing what's going on, and you're going to learn a lot. But it was a fun year. Like I said, we were able to harvest some deer, not as many as we'd like to, but that's the way it goes, and that's a game of hunting. You're not always going to be successful with harvesting an animal, but it's how you look at things and what you make of it. So with that, I don't know if you guys have anything else to add. I think we're going to shut this baby down. It's been 2 hours and 16 minutes, but it's been a fun 2 hours and 16. I hope you guys had a great season. Looking forward to this upcoming season. I know we are. And with that, we're going to sign off. Thanks for listening in, and hopefully we get another podcast out to you soon. Until then, good luck, stay safe, and have a great day. Well, that was a fun podcast. I love catching up with the guys and reliving those stories from 2023. But essentially, that's a wrap for us. 2023 is in the past, on to 2024. And if you're like us, you're looking to up your game for the next year, right? So one thing I just want to do is put a little plug in to all of our partners who have helped us throughout the years here, especially this past year, 2023. Arctic Shield continues to improve their line of apparel. Not only are they top of the line with late season apparel, they also have come out with a phenomenal early season and mid-season apparel as well. So you need to check those guys out. Domain Outdoor continuously puts out great food plot seed. That's the first thing I think about moving into the next year is what am I going to do for food plots? Well, if you're thinking like me, you need to think about Domain Outdoor. They have everything for you. Also, Tactacam, the trail cameras, top of the line, whether it's just your SD card you want to go for or your cell plan, they have those options for you. Also, Fourth Arrow camera arms, I dropped seriously about 3 pounds on my backpack because of switching over to Fourth Arrow camera arms. It's fun capturing these hunts. If you haven't tried to videotape your own hunt or your son or daughter's or whoever's hunt, I highly encourage it. It's a lot of fun. And if you're looking to get into filming your hunts, I highly recommend checking out Fourth Arrow camera arms. And finally, J&R Outdoors. Jake, Rachel have done a fabulous job of helping us out this year, putting us in a great stand. It's one of those things I talked about in the podcast. If you're sick and tired of being cold, right? If you do the combination of Arctic Shield and you get some enclosed deer stands, there's no real excuse. They have heaters out there, everything. So keep that in mind as you move forward. Thank you guys for the support in 2023. And to be honest with you, I'm looking forward to 2024. I'm excited. The rest of the Minnesota Rack Stars is excited. I hope you are excited. And hopefully we can bring you another podcast here shortly. Hope you guys are doing well. And until next time, take care.